It all starts with a new game called Night Defense that promises a big reward. The prize for the first winner is 10 billion won, an amount that would change any life. Our protagonist thinks that with this money, he could finally solve his problems. In his dark room, he dreams of money, because with it, the young man could finally escape. He wants to escape from something, and on his computer screen, we see the news about a famous politician. This politician is Kim Yui-soo, and another article reveals a little about his life with his son. Your son is an exemplary boy, the best in school, and a source of pride for his perfect family. It turns out that the boy in the photo is our protagonist, who is now at school watching his own news. In the room, a girl approaches him, complimenting him on being amazing, but he looks uncomfortable. Soon after, she calls him to talk in private with a somewhat suspicious smile. In the distance, another student watches with envy at how close the two model students seem to be. But in an alley, the girl insists on something, while the young man just ignores her coldly. Then it is revealed that it was all a trap, and the girl was with a group of bullies. Jae-hoon says he already lent her 300,000 won and refuses to give her another amount. With that, one of the guys grabs him and threatens him, saying that he will expose his illegal website to everyone. The attacker says that the girl is also an accomplice, because she knew everything. Mockingly, the bully suggests that everyone turn themselves in to the police then. He asks who will lose in this situation, and the protagonist panics. After all, the reputation of his father, an incorruptible politician, would be tarnished forever. With that, the girl approaches him, trying to convince him with her charm to give her the money. His words echo in the mind of the young man who arrives home and stops in front of a door. His hand trembles with nervousness, but he gathers his courage and decides to open the door to the room. Upon entering the room, the boy is clearly frustrated with the whole situation. Suddenly, a voice startles him, asking why he is just standing there. The famous politician looks at him with a serious look and asks if he has anything to say. The young man just lowers his head, unable to look his father in the eyes. His father reminds him that the election is coming, and even if his son doesn't help, he at least shouldn't do anything that could tarnish his family's honor. Seeing his son's silence, the politician grabs him by the collar and demands an answer. The man tightly grips the young man's collar, showing all his anger. The young man then smiles forcefully and tells his father not to worry, as he will not disappoint him. His father looks at him with contempt and asks if there is anything that could disappoint him more. The politician continues saying that his son just needs to live doing exactly what he tells him to do. With these words, the boy falls to the ground completely without hope, because this is his life. On the ground, the boy despairs and wonders what he should do, and why this is happening to him. Suddenly, a hand touches his shoulder, startling him. At that moment, the protagonist turns around completely panicked about what it could be. But to his surprise, it was only his pet cat that was there meowing at him. Relieved, the young man calls his cat and asks if the feline was worried about him. Sitting in his chair, the boy plays with his cat, who climbs on him and starts tickling him. He then holds the kitten in the air, calling the little animal a little pest. Hugging his only friend, he says that no one is on his side, neither at school nor at home. With that, the boy turns to the computer where we see a game screen. His eyes shine as he has cleared 99 waves and only has one more to go. But to his complete misfortune, the game over screen appears and he loses everything. On the cell phone screen, the level 100 wave appears, along with the game over message. All he can see is the game over screen shining brightly in front of him. Desperately, the boy wonders why this always happens to him at the last moment. With the cell phone in his hand, he realizes that the game seems impossible because he has tried hundreds of times. Elsewhere, a famous streamer is also outraged by the insane difficulty of this same game. The angry boy warns that no one should play this game because it is complete garbage. It turns out that many players managed to clear all 99 waves without any major issues. However, to this day, no one in the world has managed to surpass the 100th wave and become a legend. But still, he looks at his kitty and thinks he can't just give up now. The young man knows that the game is the only way to escape his horrible life with his cat. His hope is a rare item he got from the boss of stage 99. But even with this super strong item, the protagonist was unable to get past the final stage. Out of ideas, the boy wonders how he can finally finish the challenge. At that moment, your cat's paw touches the screen right on top of the item he was looking at. Surprised by the animal's attitude, the boy looks at it and calls it by its name. The cat's paw accidentally presses the button to dismantle the rare item he had. Completely in shock, the boy can only scream his cat's name. At this point, the game notifies you that Rezeldrake's heart has been successfully dismantled by the feline. The young man becomes desperate because all his progress and effort have been thrown away. But instead of disappearing, the rare item turned into 1,000 enhancement fragments. In his chair, the boy laments that now the only way is to start all over again from scratch. Pulling his hair, he wonders if starting the game over will do any good. However, something unexpected happens, and along with the fragments, a new item appears: the Dragon Soul. Confused, the protagonist looks at the screen and tries to understand what just happened there. He wonders why normally, when you disassemble an item, you only receive fragments, until a light goes on in his mind, and he realizes that maybe there is another way out. At that moment, the Dragon Soul is used, and a new hope arises for the boy. With a determined look, the young man understands that this is the key to winning wave number 100. Without hesitation, the protagonist moves his finger towards the button to start a new journey. Then the scene cuts to the boy's real life in an ordinary classroom in Korea. The protagonist is an ordinary student who during the day has a normal life like any other. But when night comes, his routine changes completely, and he locks himself in his room to play. In fact, the game has become an addiction, and he doesn't stop playing even when he's on the street. So when he gets home, the young man runs straight to the computer and continues his journey. After all, he had already won 99 waves and only had one left to finish the game. But thanks to his cat and the Dragon Soul, he got a new chance to try. At that moment, the boy analyzes his new strategy and believes that this time everything will work out. Full of confidence, the boy starts the last wave, the most difficult of all. With the help of the Dragon Soul, your character now faces a horde of monsters. Desperately, he uses all his skills while hoping that everything will work out. With this, an overwhelming power is released and destroys all enemies on the screen. His hope is renewed because the young man feels that this time the result will be different. With his eyes fixed on the screen, the protagonist shouts that he will certainly win this battle. And to your surprise, the long-awaited victory screen finally appears on the monitor. The player is ecstatic because all his effort and dedication have been rewarded. But his moment of joy is interrupted when the door opens and his father appears asking what he zeroed. The boy turns pale when he sees the man who says he received a call from his friends. Apparently, these guys dared to ask his father for money, using the boy's mistake as an excuse. Then the older man remembers that he had already warned him not to do anything that would tarnish his honor. Desperately, the young man apologizes to his father while shaking with fear from head to toe. He promises it will never happen again, but his father is already lifting a golf club. Without any mercy, the man strikes with all his strength towards his son. With that, the protagonist screams in pain as the object hits his body squarely. His eyes widen in pure shock and despair at the situation he is in. Amidst the shards of his notebook, he thinks about how weak he is and how he can't do anything against his father. A tear runs down his face as he remembers that that man never did anything for him. At that point, the boy stands up and with a blank look asks his father where his cat Ruru is. The man coldly responds that he no longer needs such a thing, and the young man does not understand. Upon hearing this, the protagonist grits his teeth in a mixture of hatred and impotence. His father then looks at him and asks in a threatening tone what that expression on his face means. In a panic, the boy repeats the question with a look of hatred, wanting to know where his cat is. Without any emotion, the father reveals that the pet is already with his deceased mother. This revelation hits the young man hard, and tears of pure despair stream from his eyes. Then the man holds his son's face and tells him that he just needs to live doing what he is told. This way you will have wealth and honor, so he warns you not to disappoint him ever again. With a disturbing smile, the older man says he believes in the boy's potential. He ends by saying that he trusts him, while the protagonist remains paralyzed by pain. In his thoughts, the boy says that he hates all of it and that he simply can't take it anymore. He screams in his mind that he can no longer bear that life of suffering and humiliation. Suddenly, a system window appears congratulating you for finishing the game in first place. But now it's too late, and the boy thinks there's no reason to keep holding on. Then your destroyed cell phone shines, and a system message invites you to something new. The screen draws you into the world of that game as a bright light bursts through the window. With that, a great beam of light descends from the heavens and reaches a city in another universe. There, two knights look at the light and say that the person who will save them has finally arrived. The boy appears in a great hall, and all the knights bow before him, calling him a hero. The people of that kingdom also celebrate his arrival, saying that finally the savior has appeared. But the boy notices something strange about himself because even with everything he's been through, he can't cry. He realizes that his feelings have been zeroed out, and now he simply can't feel anything. At that moment, a bearded man clears his throat to get the attention of the young man, who remains standing still. Then the king of that place asks him if he really is the legendary knight who will save the kingdom. The boy looks at the monarch's face and recognizes him from somewhere, but doesn't know exactly where. Then he remembers that that man is the same king who appears in the intro of the game he finished. The monarch introduces himself as Balis Jordia III, the young king of the Kingdom of Jordia. He then explains that the kingdom is in a terrible crisis with monsters invading from all sides. In the middle of the conversation, a soldier comes running and says that they are in big trouble. The boy hears all of this and begins to process the current situation and the scenario of the kingdom. The messenger then approaches the throne and begins to whisper the details of the situation. The boy confirms that it is identical to the intro of the game he played called Night Defense. Because of the urgency of the situation, the king says he will skip the formalities and get straight to the point. At that moment, a game screen appears asking if he accepts to be the commander of the knights. He then touches the ground to confirm that it is real and prepares to give his only condition. His condition is simple. He asks the monarch for the small sum of 1 billion won. Then a memory comes to mind showing him in his room while petting his cat. The boy remembers a moment of happiness that soon turned into total despair. He spent nights playing in his dark room with the company of his little feline. Back in the present, the nobles whisper that the hero seems weak to ask for 1 billion. The monarch doesn't know what 1 billion is, but promises to give the young man whatever he wants to protect everyone. The protagonist is surprised by the king's words, who reinforces that he will grant any wish. In astonishment, the boy asks if the sovereign will really give him anything he asks for. With a strange smile, the king tells the boy not to worry and just follow his orders. At that moment, the protagonist understands the truth, and an expression of terror takes over his face. His eyes turn red as he remembers that his true desire is for wealth and honor as well. A traumatic memory flashes through his mind of someone promising him whatever he wanted. With eyes full of hatred, the young man prepares to give his definitive answer to the monarch. Remembering the promise, the monarch tries to convince the young man to believe his words. But the protagonist, with a cry of fury, refuses the proposal and says he will not do it. Faced with the response, the sovereign is completely shocked and does not understand what happened. The boy then remembers that wherever he went, everyone used him because he was the son of a congressman. Even the people he liked would come close, just to take advantage of him. Since he was little, he was manipulated by his father and everyone around him without exception. Shouting, the boy asks if they want him to become a slave to the knights. He says with contempt that he does not need the fame or wealth the ruler offered. The king just watches in silence as the boy rejects everything he most desires. At that moment, the hero looks at the screen and tells everyone there to go to hell. Without hesitation, his finger moves towards the button to decline the monarch's offer. The nobles and the king are astonished because they cannot believe that the hero is doing this. Upon confirmation, the screen turns red and the system accepts the young person's refusal. After a while, the kingdom was attacked by countless monsters that appeared from all sides, and because of the player's failure to protect the kingdom, everything was completely destroyed. Everything was destroyed, and the boy thought that was the end. But something changed. Suddenly, the system informs him that because he rejected humans, he can choose a new side. In this way, a secret route is unlocked, and the monster faction becomes available to the young man. The boy is confused by this new option and tries to understand what it means. He then realizes that it will not be a game of defense and that he will now be on the attacking side. Going back a little in time, the king says that every choice comes with its responsibilities. Angrily, the sovereign shouts to everyone that the boy is no longer a legendary knight. Furious, he declares him an enemy who not only humiliated him but also betrayed the country. Even so, the boy looks at the ruler with a firm gaze and without any remorse. The king continues his speech, saying that the young man has put all the people in danger. With that, the monarch orders his knights to attack and finish off the traitor. The guards quickly advance towards the hero with a thirst for revenge in their eyes. The boy then thinks that he has endured too much humiliation for too long now. In an instant, all the soldiers in the kingdom surround the boy, pointing their weapons at him. But the young man is not shaken, and with his eyes shining, he just screams for everyone to die. However, the knight's swords stop inches from the boy's neck, who stares at them with hatred. From his body, a red energy explodes, throwing all the soldiers away violently. The king is completely shocked to see the absurd power the former hero has just used. At that moment, the system confirms the faction choice, and the young man begins to transform. The system informs that it will now surpass human abilities and cause hostility in them. Then the system window reveals what the monster faction's ultimate goal will be. With a determined look, the boy faces the human faction as his new great enemy. He then declares that it is now his turn to attack and no longer just defend himself. With that, the boy sees a horde of monsters preparing for the first wave of attack. The system informs him that he will only have 10 minutes to prepare before the start. As time passes, the system reminds you again what your faction's objective is. The ultimate goal is nothing less than to completely destroy the human faction. As a reward for completing the task, he will be able to pick up an item and take it to his world. Upon hearing that he can return home, the young man is surprised and starts thinking about something. He remembers a girl from his world and thinks maybe he can take her with him. With that, the red energy coming from his body violently throws all the soldiers away. The knights stand up confused and wonder about the sinister energy they felt from the boy. Even the king is shocked by the situation and wonders if it can really be called a monster. The monarch had never felt such energy from a person in his entire life. The boy realizes that faction selection was not something that existed in the original version of the game. Then the main quest window appears in front of you, with the monster faction oath. Now with white hair, he notices that even with the different mission the game progresses normally. Thinking about this, he knows that if everything is as in the game, then now he should get a summoning ticket. But to the young man's surprise, instead of the ticket he was expecting, the system delivered a large egg. The system window explains that in place of the knight, he received an S-rank monster egg. The protagonist then agrees to hatch the item, and at the same time a strong light comes out from inside the egg. In a few seconds, the item breaks completely, revealing the creature that was inside. The knights nearby are completely terrified by the summoned creature. The boy can't believe what he sees because he knows very well the monster that has just been summoned. He summoned none other than the cold-blooded dragon, a boss from Wave 99 of the game. The boy thinks that if this dragon were summoned in the middle of the kingdom, it would be the end of everything. But to his surprise, the fearsome monster appears as a small, cute creature. He is shocked to see that the summoned being is only a level 1 hatchling. The little creature looks at its new master with an innocent and curious look. Then the little dragon begins to lick the young man's finger like a kitten. Still not believing what happened, the white-haired boy is speechless. At that point, a system notification appears telling him to use the Eye of the Sovereign. This passive skill allows him to see the status of surrounding monsters and items. The knights recover from their shock and see that he has summoned only a small monster. With their guard down, the commander orders all his troops to advance to attack. The protagonist decides that no matter the situation, he must survive at all costs. Then he activates his new ability, and his eye glows with an intense purple light. The boy knows that his only hope now lies in the power of his little companion. Analyzing the information, he sees that the creature has the dragon's breath skill. Without hesitation, the young man orders Ruzzledrak to use his ability against the soldiers. Before him, the knights advance, ready for the final attack without any mercy. The boy then yells for his little companion to use dragon breath. Obeying its master, the little creature begins to prepare its powerful ability. In an instant, a beam of red energy is fired, hitting a soldier head-on. The knight commander is shocked by the small being's destructive power. The energy blast passes through the entire enemy front line without difficulty. The attack is so strong that it passes through the palace wall and reaches the city. With that, a giant piece of a tower collapses on innocent citizens. The result is a gigantic hole in the castle wall, leaving everyone speechless. Even the silver-haired youth is amazed at his dragon's power. One of the survivors shouts that the palace wall has been destroyed with one blow. The others wonder what kind of demon the boy was able to summon there. The protagonist realizes that everything was easier than he thought, and already plans his next step. Then a system message appears, saying that he can return to his original world. To do this, he needs to conquer the castle and obtain one of the numerous items that exist there. He thinks that among so many items in the castle, one of them will have the ability he wants. After all, the boy is in no rush to return to his original world. At this point, your only focus is to complete the mission while your pet looks hungry. Suddenly, a man with a crown calls him the representative of the human faction. Sitting on his throne, the king continues his speech with a very serious look on his face. But the boy says he will bring about their destruction because he needs his reward. Meanwhile, chaos is spreading in the city due to the huge hole in the palace. A blonde knight watches the scene from afar without understanding what happened in the castle. Back in the main hall, the king looks desperate, asking for more time. The woman then runs towards His Majesty, asking him to hold on. The silver-haired youth calls for his dragon Ruzzledrak to fire another blow. Seeing this, a soldier panics and orders them to form a shield barrier. However, the protagonist knows that it is useless because the last attack has already gone through everything. He then points forward as his little companion prepares a new power. With a serious expression, the boy's target is revealed to be the king himself. A man in golden armor arrives, shouting that he is there to save Her Majesty. The soldiers quickly raise their shields to form a protective barrier around the throne. The silver-haired boy remembers that the previous attack was strong enough to destroy everything. Meanwhile, a huge sphere of black energy begins to form in front of them. Seeing the size of the power, his little dragon despairs and cries out for the king. The knight who just arrived looks back and says that the ruler is safe. But a soldier beside the throne asks why the enemy's magic suddenly stopped. The protagonist then explains that just like knights, monsters also spend mana. The skill screen shows that dragon breath costs a lot of energy and causes dark circles under the eyes. Realizing this, the young man thinks that even a normal attack would be enough to end everything. However, when he tries a new blow, the power simply disappears into thin air. The boy complains that it was too easy, and now he has to wait for the skill's cooldown. Suddenly, the woman from before asks if he was the one who dared to aim at her king's life. The Dragon Master and his companion look up with a serious expression. A screen then explains that knights are divided into ranks, such as apprentice and lower rank. In addition to the ranks shown before, we also see the ranks B, A, and finally the elite knights S. Among them is one of the 12 elite knights of the Zodiac, the warrior known as Ares. This is Ares, a man with silver hair and a muscular body, who is there to protect the king. Being the strongest knight in the kingdom, he asks worriedly if His Majesty is okay. The Dragon Master realizes that the situation has become very complicated for his side. The ruler then declares that war is imminent and orders that the invader be eliminated immediately. At this, the elite knight accepts the command as his lance begins to glow brightly. Completely panicked, the young man wonders how he will deal with an S-rank knight. His eyes widen as he remembers that the warrior is one of the 12 S-rank knights. Then the warrior prepares an area skill and warns that the young man will dance to his death. At that moment, he unleashes a powerful fire attack, proving himself to be a formidable opponent. The ability called Flame Wall creates a massive explosion of fire. The boy and his pet look up to see the huge wave of fire coming towards them. On his face, we see the pure terror of someone who is about to face his end. The gigantic explosion of fire then hits one of the castle's towers, destroying everything. The explosion of fire engulfs everything, and in the midst of the flames, we see a hand reaching out in despair. The skill not only hits the target but also the knights who scream in pain from the heat. Fallen to the ground, our hero is in shock as calls for help echo throughout the place. A system screen shows that the flame wall shoots fire in a straight line towards the target. As he knew he was the target, the young man managed to dodge it at the last second along with his pet. He looks back at the bodies and realizes that the enemy doesn't care about the allies. With that, the boy grits his teeth in anger because of the elite warrior's cruel attitude. The S-rank opponent then calls him a rat for dodging his powerful attack. Ares threatens by saying that he will make a beautiful hole of fire right in the heart of the invader. The protagonist then realizes that the enemy's skill is on cooldown. Still, he knows he has no chance, and his pet screams in pain from being injured. At that moment, the knight jumps and warns him not to move as it will hurt even more. Completely desperate, the boy tries to find a way out of this impossible situation. He reflects that he didn't come this far on his journey, just to have an end like this. This is when a main quest reward window pops up with a random item box. The main mission reward appears before the boy, and he begs the system to be quick. Completely out of time, he shouts for the item to be delivered immediately. The system then confirms that the random box reward was successfully accepted. With that, the item finally appears in his hands, glowing with a strong golden light. He then throws the box on the ground and a burst of smoke throws the enemy away from the scene. At that moment, the box begins to shine with a golden light, blinding the boy's vision. From within the light, a dark sword begins to materialize, leaving the protagonist shocked. At that, the boy's eye shines and he uses the Eye of the Sovereign skill to analyze the weapon. The screen shows the Hellbringer sword with a magic attack power of 999. The item was of rank S, and the young man did not understand who summoned it there at that moment. He then realizes that with all this power, the item wants him to annihilate the human faction. Immediately after, the colossal blade falls with everything, and its tip sticks into the ground with force. The impact of the weapon is so powerful that it cracks the entire marble floor around our hero. The boy is shocked by the absurd power of the sword and wonders if it is real. Suddenly, a wave of destructive energy begins to spread through the hall from the blade. The sword's energy wave destroys the hall with overwhelming force. With the impact, the protagonist is thrown away and is confused by the situation. He is then thrown into the air by the force of the explosion as he screams in despair. The boy is irritated because the palace cannot even support the weight of a weapon. At that moment, the entire ceiling of the place begins to collapse because of the power of the blade. The young man is shocked when he realizes the extent of the destruction that is taking place. As he falls amidst the rubble, he thinks he cannot end his journey there. Suddenly, he manages to steady himself in the air and abruptly stops his fall. Surprised, the boy notices that he has stopped falling and wonders what could have happened. Looking down, he sees that the destruction has mysteriously ceased in the hall. Just then, a small red being with pointy ears appears out of nowhere on his shoulder. The hero smiles as he sees his little dragon Reiseldrak, who saved him from certain death. Because of this, people in the city look up at the sky and are amazed to see someone flying. The boy feels relieved to have narrowly escaped a tragic end, but now he knows that there is a great difference in power between him and the kingdom. He understands that he needs to become stronger, as S-class knights will continue to appear in his path. So your priority now is to escape the kingdom as fast as you can to save yourself. Meanwhile, one of the elite knights is furious that he let the invader slip through his fingers. Ares feels like a pathetic and incompetent fool for failing to accomplish his mission. He keeps blaming himself and thinks he should have been washed away at that time. At that moment, a page interrupts him, saying that His Majesty is calling him. The knight then runs to the throne room and asks his king for forgiveness for his failure. But the monarch interrupts him and says that the sun is setting, and Ares knows what that means. As night falls, the monsters that attack the kingdom become much stronger and more dangerous. That is why His Majesty puts him in command of the war and sends him to protect the walls of the kingdom. Even with the previous failure, the king still fully trusts in the abilities of his elite knight. Meanwhile, far away, the protagonist and his dragon fly towards the sunset. The boy remembers a tower defense game with $1 billion prize that was almost impossible to beat. In that game, the first wave of attack was composed of a horde of wild and cruel goblins. He knows that with Ares on the walls, it will be impossible for the first wave of monsters to invade the kingdom. He thinks that if he were an S-rank assassin instead of Ares, he would already be lost, but soon realizes he is falling. His little dragon also seems to be in trouble, so the boy asks him to hold on tight as there is not much time left. Suddenly, the fall becomes faster, and they go straight towards one of the castle walls. Desperately, the boy screams as he braces himself for the inevitable impact that is coming. He closes his eyes and realizes that the two of them are going to crash straight into the stone tower. At that moment, a huge impact occurs, raising a huge cloud of dust across the street. Soon after, the boy gets up complaining of back pain, but realizes he is fine. He then looks at his arm and wonders how his body withstood such an impact without a scratch. As he puts on his boots, a mysterious voice questions him about his identity and his strange clothes. The boy is completely shocked and wonders why just now another knight has appeared. His surprise is because of the blonde S-rank knight named Lib, who appeared right in front of him. With a serious expression on her face, the warrior orders the invader to identify himself immediately. But the boy remembers that the reason he managed to stop the 100th wave of monsters was her. Despite being S-rank, it was inefficient in defense but great for farming in dungeons and adventures. That's why he used it together with the dragon soul, because this combination was the key to victory. He remembers that in the 100th wave of the game, she was the key to victory against the monsters. Back in the present, the blonde knight demands that the intruder identify himself immediately. Then the warrior asks if the boy knows her, and he simply answers yes, saying her name. The young man claims he knows it very well, because he has played the game hundreds of times to understand its value. Without understanding, the warrior asks what he means, because she was the key to his strategy. But the protagonist reveals that now the factions have changed, and that's why she has become an obstacle. With a cold look, he concludes that the knight is the first target that needs to be eliminated. At this point, the scene changes to a dark night sky, indicating that something is going to happen. Soon a hideous monster with red eyes appears in the darkness and lets out a terrifying roar. Seeing the creatures approaching, the castle soldiers despair and shout that they are coming. Then a horde of goblins begins to climb the castle walls without any difficulty. Seeing this, the commander orders the archers to shoot, and a rain of arrows falls on the monsters. Additionally, the soldiers throw stones to prevent the creatures from reaching the top of the wall. Even with all the efforts, the army of monsters is gigantic and surrounds the entire castle. A soldier then warns that they won't last long and asks where the commander is. At that moment, a soldier warns that Lord Ares is on his way, bringing hope to his companion. The scene returns to the blonde warrior, who demands that the boy answer about his identity. With a serious look, she threatens him, saying that if he doesn't respond, she will have to take action. The young man reflects that it would be impossible to defeat her, now as no S-rank knight could defeat her. Changing his expression, he points his finger and says he is an ordinary citizen who got lost along the way. Then a red creature appears out of nowhere behind the boy, letting out a roar, leaving him surprised. Seeing the creature, the warrior is left speechless and questions the presence of a monster inside. Embarrassed by the creatures on his shoulders, the young man laments that this is happening right now. The knight realizes that she is now suspected of complicity and that there is no turning back from the situation. With this, she concludes that her chances of winning are zero, as she has no ranged attacks. She then turns around and asks why the boy is hiding behind her if he understood the situation. The knight stands in front of the young man and reassures him that she will now protect him. The little monster lets out a confused roar and tilts its head, not understanding what is happening. This reaction from the creature leaves the boy's protector completely confused and irritated. However, the creature simply makes a cute expression with bright eyes at the warrior. With an analytical look, the boy realizes that this is the true personality of the knight called Lib. At that moment, a huge explosion occurs in one of the castle walls, scaring everyone. The young man points in shock at the destruction and realizes that this is his perfect chance to escape. At this, the little creature flies towards the smoke while someone screams about blowing up the walls. Soon after the smoke clears, the blonde knight wonders where the boy and the monster went. A soldier quickly approaches and, relieved, calls the knight by her full name, Lady Lib. However, the warrior's expression changes, and she looks worriedly towards the main gate. The large wooden gate of the fortress begins to shake violently with loud bangs. On the other side, the soldiers look at the main entrance with expressions of pure terror and fear. The blows continue with more force, and now the wooden gate begins to crack completely. The knight then orders everyone to drop their bows and prepare for hand-to-hand combat. Outside, a horde of green humanoid monsters tries to break down the gate at all costs. Leading the attack is a giant ogre with a spiked club about to deliver the final blow. Seeing the cracks in the gate, the blonde warrior and her soldiers prepare for the inevitable. Even though they were prepared, the guards' expressions couldn't hide the fear they were feeling at that moment. With one last blow, the giant ogre's thorny club completely destroys the wooden gate. With her sword shining brightly, the blonde warrior orders her soldiers to advance into battle. At that moment, one of the red-eyed monsters manages to get through the destroyed entrance and roars in fury. Immediately, the entire horde of green creatures invades the castle courtyard, outnumbering the guards. But suddenly a man with white hair and a red cape appears in the midst of the chaos, and he introduces himself as the commander. The blonde knight is shocked to see the newcomer and then calls him Ares, wondering what he is doing there. However, the commander seems irritated by the situation and yells at the soldiers, calling them useless for failing. Then the white-haired warrior raises his staff and conjures a huge wall of flames in front of the monsters. The flames instantly consumed the green creatures, who screamed in pain as they were burned alive. With a sadistic smile on his face, he orders the monsters to dance in the fire until his mood improves. Meanwhile, from a safe place far away, the boy and the little creature watch the tide of battle change. The young man then reveals that in the past, he was the only player capable of single-handedly stopping 100 hordes of monsters. However, things are different now because the monster faction's ultimate goal is to annihilate the human faction. With that, the boy wonders if his mission now is to destroy them all before the 100 hordes reach their end. As he caresses the little creature, he thinks that if he could go back in time, this mission would not be impossible to accomplish. A raindrop falls on the red creature's nose as it looks up. The gray-haired boy holds his little companion and asks him to wait a little. There in the castle, the soldiers shout with joy because they have finally won the battle. However, the blonde knight has a serious look and says that this will be the last time. Far away, the protagonist enters the forest while a mysterious shadow watches him. He then looks at the city in the distance and reveals that he began his journey right there. But now the young man is in a dark forest in the territory of the monster faction. With a serious expression, he realizes that this path did not exist in the original game. The boy remembers restarting the game hundreds of times just to survive the 100 hordes. That's why he knows the kingdom's tactics, but now he's going to start from scratch. Suddenly he stops on a cliff because he remembered something very important. He then lifts the creature and reveals that its name is actually Rizeldrak. After that, the boy releases the little monster who flies a little away from him. At this point, the protagonist's eyes widen as he sees something completely unexpected. There were just a few hard-working ants carrying pebbles along the way. The little ants continued their work normally, carrying pebbles along the way without noticing their presence. Suddenly, one of them looks up and is completely terrified by the giants watching her. Then the protagonist and his companion observe the scene, and the boy notices that the little monster acts like a curious cat. Leaving the insects aside, the gray-haired young man sits down and thinks about what he should do next in that place. At that moment, a mission window appears right in front of him, as he had already expected it would. Main quest number 2 was for him to establish a monster faction, and the reward was a random skill. The boy then understands that he will need to personally gather and recruit the monsters to create his own faction. Thinking about the early game monsters, he remembers that goblins should appear in this region. But when he looks around, the young man realizes that there are no goblins or rabbits and wonders how he would talk to them. After all, he needs to speak their language, but a fast figure whizzes past him, interrupting his thoughts. This frightens the boy and barely has time to react to the surprise attack that came from the forest. Then a voice screams, telling the human to die as a shadowy blade advances towards him. The protagonist's eyes widen as the blow was aimed to hit him right in the face. But somehow he dodges the attack and the mysterious creature passes right by him. The swift blow only hits the ground, raising some dust and grass with the impact. Despite having dodged the protagonist, he feels a strong pressure on his neck, as if he were going to be caught. But the blow stops suddenly, and he notices that a female hand has caught the blade before it hits him. With wide eyes, the boy turns his face to see who saved him from that surprise attack. He then comes across long white hair and a female figure that appeared in front of him. The creature was actually a beast girl with animal ears and a tail, which leaves him shocked. The young man remembers the monsters he was looking for and asks if she might be a rabbit. This question makes the girl completely irritated, and her ears move in anger. She screams that she looks more like a fox, but the boy replies that he never said she was cute. The fox girl insists that she heard him say that and continues to complain to the boy non-stop. The protagonist watches her for a moment as she continues her tantrum in front of him. Then he gets an idea and realizes that she is actually an Arctic fox. The girl stops complaining immediately and remains quiet, staring at him with a surprised expression. Suddenly, other girls identical to her appear surrounding the protagonist, who is left confused. One of them approaches and says that he looks human, but has a strange monster smell. The gray-haired young man becomes tense as he is now surrounded by them, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, a system window pops up and informs you that 2 passive skills have been activated. The first is communication with monsters that allows him to understand what they say. The second ability makes him a friendly monster, attracting positive attention from creatures. The gray-haired boy finally understands why he could communicate with the fox girl. At that moment, one of the girls points at him and shouts, aggressively getting his attention. She then asks who the hell he is, while the young man tries to think of a quick answer. The protagonist is confused because his friendly monster ability should be working. But before he could respond, an arrow hits one of the fox girls by surprise. Then 3 men emerge from the forest, and one of them celebrates having hit the target. The young man watches them from afar and wonders if they are some kind of bandit faction. One of the foxes then screams angrily, saying that he knew he was only human. Looking at the injured girl on the ground, he realizes she is trapped. She accuses him of setting it all up and asks why he is going after their race. The boy tries to explain himself by saying that it was all just a big misunderstanding. Meanwhile, one of the bandits approaches and takes the rope from the trap that injured the girl. With that, the bandit pulls the rope of the trap with great force. At that moment, the fox girl is thrown upwards, while screaming furiously. One of the bandits screams with an expression of pure evil on his face. The rope then breaks, and the young fox begins to plummet towards the ground. Observing everything from afar, the protagonist is shocked by the situation. Taking advantage of the fall, the muscular man lands a powerful punch on the girl's face. With an evil smile, he seems satisfied that he hit the young woman squarely. His look shows that he will not have mercy on anyone there. But to the man's surprise, the girl manages to hold his wrist with one hand. Without wasting time, she lands a powerful kick right in the middle of the brute's chest. The force of the blow is so great that the man is shocked by the situation. With the force of the kick, the big guy is thrown far away. His companions observe the scene, and one of them is shocked by what he has just seen. Even the protagonist is impressed as she knocked the man down with a single kick. Then one of the henchmen insults her by calling her a filthy mutt. The thug then insults her and then kicks her, while she is lying on the ground. From a distance, the protagonist observes everything and feels that something in that scene is not right. The fox girl endures the pain, feeling humiliated at being hunted. With his fist clenched, the boy wonders why he is getting so angry about this. Suddenly, a guy with a ponytail approaches him and asks if he's okay. The newcomer says that it could have ended much worse. He then asks what the gray-haired young man was doing there alone. At this point, the other henchman wonders if the girl is still out of her mind. Irritated by her grumbling, the man raises a club ready to attack. Seeing this, the protagonist looks furious, ready to interrupt them. But the man with the ponytail holds him back and tells him she will die if they continue. The bandit then calms down and apologizes to his group for getting upset. The protagonist sighs in relief, while the other says that his people are kind of intense. However, the guy shows an evil smile and asks if he was talking to the monster. In an instant, the man pulls out a knife and points it at the boy, who is stunned. The guy with the ponytail says that if he knew he was like the girl, everything would be easier. Before the boy could react, the man struck him in the stomach and the bloody blade fell. With his hand on the wound, the gray-haired young man asks what he meant by that. Upon seeing the scene, the fox girl is shocked and doesn't understand what is happening. Suddenly, the protagonist feels his entire body burning from the inside out. Then the man tells him to relax, as he had avoided the vital points on purpose. He goes on to say that the poison on the blade will finish the young man off in 12 hours. Then the bandit shows a vial saying it is the antidote and that he will only give it to him if he helps. Meanwhile, one of the henchmen grabs the girl's head very tightly. The group leader asks her where her tribe lives. Even though she is being held, the girl remains silent as they talk about the fox den. Wounded, our hero is surprised to hear about this place. Hidden among the trees, a small red creature observes the whole situation. In great pain, the gray-haired boy asks what this fox den might be. The man explains that it is a village of beastmen, and that if he helps find it, he will live. The gray-haired young man then understands what the villain wants, but wonders why the village. Meanwhile, the fox girl knows that taking them there will put everyone in danger. Determined, she opens her mouth and tries to bite her tongue so as not to reveal anything. Seeing the scene, our hero is shocked by the girl's desperate attempt. But the henchman reacts quickly and stops her from biting her tongue and ends up being bitten. At that moment, the boy understands that she was trying to sacrifice herself to protect the village. Even though she was injured, the girl stared at her attacker with hatred, as he called her a wild beast. Then the leader of the group says that all the beastmen they catch end up dying within a day. Approaching the fox girl, the leader of the bandits decides to extract the information himself. He holds her tightly, and she screams in pain at the man's sudden grip. He comments on how beastmen don't value their own lives to protect others. The bandit tells his henchmen to stay behind, as there may be others nearby. Turning to the boy, the villain says he wants to make a deal, and the hero notices his attitude change. Just then, one of the henchmen sees the red creature in the air, and wonders when it appeared there. With eyes glowing red, the small creature looks ready to attack the group of bandits. One of the henchmen then yells at his boss to be careful while the girl tries to warn him to swerve. But our hero knows it's already too late for the villain to react in time. Then the little creature uses its dragon breath to attack the bandits. With that, a ray of energy hits the leader's neck, who begs for his life. The small creature floats in the air after its quick and accurate attack on the enemy. Seeing the scene, the protagonist is shocked and ends up spitting out some blood. The other two henchmen look at what happened, completely terrified. Meanwhile, the little red animal screams furiously at the remaining bandits. The gray-haired boy realizes that the skill's cooldown hasn't ended yet. Immediately, the creature launches another attack that explodes on the ground near the villains. They notice that the grass has melted, and that this wasn't even a full-force attack. Out of fear, one of the henchmen grabs his gun and laments that he hasn't even gotten married yet. The other bandit gets angry and calls the creature a fly as he prepares to attack. Seeing that, our hero is left wide-eyed, not knowing what to do, but the little animal easily dodges the blow of the henchman, who brushes past him. The small red creature falls to the ground completely knocked out after the blow. With that, the bandit becomes furious and curses the animal for almost hitting his head. His partner suggests they capture the little monster, as it could be worth a lot of money, but our hero looks down and says in a cold voice that he doesn't need that. Then the leader of the villains orders his henchmen to watch the boy and the girl. He says he will take care of the creature himself, as he prepares to finish it off. Seeing that, the protagonist wonders if he can survive just by being able to talk to monsters. In this, he remembers a time in the past when he was bullied by a group of people. The boy remembers how he always had to survive in a pathetic way, and how someone in his life told him he was completely useless. Even knowing what would happen, he continued to follow that path. Back in the present, the young man decides he doesn't want to regret losing anything else. At that exact moment, the villain raises his club to crush the little creature. The white-haired girl looks back and sees the protagonist with a scared expression. With a determined face, the hero reflects that the truly useless one there is not him. Suddenly, a system window shows that a passive skill has been activated. The skill is called Physical Monster and grants the young man strength that transcends human strength. Then the antagonist completes the boy's thought by saying that he is the truly useless one. But in the blink of an eye, the hero jumps towards the bandit with absurd strength. The villain throws a potion on the ground, but our protagonist crushes it with his fist. With that, the white-haired girl is shocked to witness the boy's power. The leader's henchmen also don't believe what they are seeing, and are very scared. The protagonist lands a punch so hard that the enemy's face is completely deformed. After the blow, the young man remains standing amidst the dust that rose up at the scene. Seeing the scene, the other bandits panic and run far away from there. Then the girl remembers that he was dying because of a poisoned blade, so she wonders how he's moving like that with so much power. Our hero ignores everything and kneels on the ground to pick up the small, injured creature. He holds the little monster, who wonders why the boy came to save him, even though he was injured. The red creature then rubs itself against his chest as a way of thanking him. Looking at the little monster, the young man remembers a friend who made him smile. He remembers a kitten that was always by his side, giving him strength. At that time, the protagonist was very lonely, and his only friend was the little feline. Back in the present, the little creature decides that he will protect him from all harm. Then the boy smiles and swears to the little monster that he will protect him no matter the cost. In an instant of silent fury, a single thought fills the young man's mind, directed toward an unknown enemy. He is kneeling on the ground in front of a group of thugs who threaten him about their boss, warning him that everyone will die if he finds out. The boy raises his gaze with a thread of blood on his lip and eyes burning in a cold challenge. Despite having everything against him, his intense gaze unsettles the aggressors, and their tough attitude quickly crumbles, turning into fear and confusion. After one last threat through stammering, they turn around and leave, leaving the young man alone with a small winged creature. The little red creature lets out an adorable roar, puffing its chest with pride once the enemies have gone. As the young man struggles to stand, a dark aura envelops him, showing the immense power he just used. But suddenly, his strength abandons him and he collapses. Nearby, a white-haired woman with fox ears watches the scene. She observes with a surprised expression, as she did not expect the young man to collapse so suddenly after that display of power. Now unconscious, he is surrounded by 3 of the little red creatures who gently push him, trying to wake him. Lying on the ground, he begins to lose consciousness, wondering if this is how his journey ends. His last thoughts are filled with worry about what will happen if he dies there, while a restless creature watches him. As everything fades into darkness, a memory of his mother appears in his mind. He remembers himself as a child, sitting helplessly beside his mother's hospital bed, keeping vigil over her, shrinking from grief and anger. The child thinks about the person responsible for her condition. At the end of his memory, the young man recalls his rage, thinking that the person responsible never appeared. Suddenly, his eyes open wide as consciousness slowly returns to him. He finds himself in a dark and unknown place inside a cave and wonders where he is. A white-haired girl with fox ears holds him and tells him that he should not move yet. She takes him out of the dark cave with a torch while he wonders why she saved him. Upon leaving the cave, a voice shouts that Rhea has returned and announces that she brings with her a human. A crowd of people with rabbit ears gathers, commenting that he looks like a human. 2 girls from the tribe feel that something in him is strange, but one of them admits that for some reason she likes him. Inside a hut, the young man rests while the tribe watches him, wondering when he will wake up. He is already awake, but he feels too self-conscious to get up with so many people staring at him. Then someone appears and asks everyone to give the guest a little space so he can rest. Someone asks if it's true that a human saved her, but Rhea replies that the questions can wait. Still lying down, the young man hears that new voice and finds it strangely familiar. An older woman with an air of nobility approaches, correctly noticing that he is already awake. She asks him to excuse everyone's curiosity, explaining that although he looks human, he is different. The woman explains that although he looks human, he doesn't smell like one, which leaves him confused about his own identity. Suddenly, he realizes something. Looking at his hands, he notices that the effects of the poison in his body have completely disappeared. Rhea turns around and tells him that luckily they had an antidote in the village. Then the boy asks her about that place. A serious expression draws on the boy's face as a dark and worrying thought appears in his mind. He remembers the danger she faced and fears that by bringing him to the village, everyone may end up in danger too. The girl shows her sharp fangs, revealing a much wilder nature than her appearance initially suggested. The young man remembers the distrust he felt, wondering why she helped him if she seemed so wary of him. He confronts her directly and asks why she saved him. Rhea responds that it was simply for being a human. She adds that despite that, he doesn't have the smell of one. However, the boy doesn't seem convinced. The white-haired girl hesitates for a moment, and her gaze gets lost in the distance before continuing the explanation. She remembers the scene in which she found him kneeling on the ground while protecting the little red creature. He reflects on having been saved and thinks out loud. If that's the effect of being a sympathetic monster. Annoyed by his murmurs, Rhea scolds him for being so talkative and annoying, even after she saved him. Beside them, the little red creature lets out a cute roar, as if agreeing with the scolding. The young man looks at his little companion and with a faint smile sincerely thanks both of them for the help. The young man, a little embarrassed, tells her that there's no need to go so far to thank her. Rhea clears her throat, a little uncomfortable, and says that he also saved her, so they're even. Then he smiles and suggests that if she really is grateful, there is something she can do. While she hears the creature's roar, suddenly the little red creature Rizel Doctor jumps toward the boy as he calls it by its name. The young man laughs, saying it tickles him, while Raya watches the scene, surprised to hear the creature's name. At that moment, she realizes they haven't introduced themselves yet, and suggests that since fate brought them together, they should do it. Before she can say her name, a girl with rabbit ears comes running in, calling for Raya. The messenger says that the village chief is looking for her, and that he asked her to bring the guest with her. They leave the hut, and under the blue sky, the landscape of a large village among the mountains is revealed. The boy looks around in awe, realizing he is in the Beastmen's village, a place called Bar. She explains that the village was built by rabbit beastmen, but now it welcomes all who have lost their homes. As they walk, a villager asks about Raya's leg, to which she replies that it's fine, although she seems a little sad. A beastman with a horn approaches them, scolding her for going again to the forest of the humans. She promises to be more careful. The imposing beastman watches as both walk away, his face marked by a serious and watchful expression. The boy comments that everyone in the village seems to care a lot about her, and Raya nods softly. He asks Raya what's wrong, noticing she seems down. The girl tells him he's right to ask. Suddenly, she yells at him, completely catching the boy off guard with her mood swing. Irritated, she asks if his name is Hei, and the boy is left confused by her sudden outburst. With her hands on her hips, Raya looks at him with an angry expression, clearly expecting an answer. The boy, a bit baffled by her anger, stammers a reply before pulling himself together. He introduces himself as King Heian. The girl comments that it's quite an unusual name around there. Then she reveals her full name, Raya Rindrian Perdit, and Cecilia Gion is left totally perplexed. At that moment, a rabbit villager approaches to ask if Raya's leg is okay, and she turns to answer. She cheerfully responds that her leg was treated and is better. John thinks her name is peculiar. He observes her, thinking she suddenly seems cheered up, and assumes she just wanted to say her name. Then the boy looks at the sky, and his expression becomes serious as he reflects on his situation. A system window appears, showing his main mission to unite the monsters and build a faction. Raya calls him, saying they must go see the village chief. He nods, snapping out of his thoughts, wondering why she asked for his name if she was going to keep calling him Hei. As she walks ahead and he follows, he keeps thinking about the mission to unite the monsters and build a faction. He wonders if he's capable of such a feat, and the village chief smiles, saying he leaves the village in his hands. The sudden statement leaves both Jian and Rhea completely shocked and speechless. Desperate, the girl shouts to the chief to wait a moment, trying to stop the decision. The old man explains that he's already very old, but Rhea replies that the boy knows nothing about the village. She continues questioning the madness of handing the village over to a stranger for a dream, but the chief has already decided. As the leader walks away, Rhea refuses to accept the situation, pleading with him to reconsider. He remains silent, processing the enormous responsibility just placed on him. The scene moves slightly back in time to the conversation they had, where the chief explained to him about his dreams. He had said that his peculiar dreams always come true, and that Jian is the only one who can save the village. The boy understands that this is related to his main mission of uniting the monsters and creating a faction. He reflects that if the village needs to be saved, it means some danger is approaching. A memory of the thugs arises, mentioning that their boss lost something and that the lives of the beastmen depended on it. With this information, Jian's eyes open wide as he suddenly understands. He quickly turns and calls Rhea, who asks him what happened. With a serious expression, he asks if she was followed when she returned to the village. Rhea explains that Baron is a village hidden behind a rocky mountain and that it has never been discovered until now. She continues, saying that the reason is that behind the mountain there is a vast ocean, so no one would dare cross it. However, she reveals that there is only one way to enter Baron without having to cross the mountain. The girl explains that the alternative route is the tunnels dug by the rabbit people of the village. She adds that even if someone were to find the tunnels, the interior has a complex structure, like a maze. The underground passages branch out into a confusing network, making navigation extremely difficult. Because of this natural defense, finding the right path that leads to Baron is considered almost impossible. Hiran says he didn't notice anything strange when leaving the tunnel. Rhea seems relieved but still has a worried expression. The boy still feels a strange unease, wondering what the cause might be as he looks at her leg. Nearby, a small stain of fresh blood dirties the rocky ground, going unnoticed by them. Hidden, a sinister figure with a wicked smile touches the cave wall, letting out a low and threatening laugh. The figure steps out of the cave's shadow, watching the village from a distance, and declares that he has found them. The young man tells the fox-eared girl he felt nothing strange when passing through the tunnel. She finds this fortunate, but seems to have other concerns. An uneasy feeling lingers for him as he glances at her bandaged leg, wondering what the source of his discomfort could be. Meanwhile, back inside the tunnel they just left, a small patch of blood stains the rocky ground where she was injured. A sinister figure with a mocking laugh touches the cave wall, having apparently followed the trail right to its source. He dashes out of the cave entrance, spotting a small village in the distance, and triumphantly declares that he has found it. His shout echoes across the valley as he alerts his companions that a human has been located inside the territory of Warren. The sudden alarm catches the attention of the young man and his companion, who turn around in surprise as the warning spreads. A large minotaur shouts at a captured man on the ground, who sweats nervously, unable to understand what is being said. As the pair arrives, surrounded by beastmen, the hero tells the fox girl that the intruder likely followed the trail from her wounds. His companion is shocked to hear this, insisting that she was careful and remained aware of her surroundings the entire time. She apologizes to the assembled villagers for her mistake, but the large minotaur tells her there is no need to blame herself. He reasons it must have been difficult for her to carry someone while injured, and they have already captured the man who followed her. Several bunny-eared villagers also gather around to comfort her, reassuring her that it is not her fault. The young man suddenly has a realization. He recalls there were 3 bandits and asks what happened to the other 2. The captured intruder on the ground smirks at them, taunting that their home will soon be engulfed in a sea of flames. The captured bandit grins madly, revealing his group is so feared that even the kingdom avoids them. He names their boss as Scream Spike. He continues his threat, declaring that his leader will soon arrive with 200 men to storm the village and destroy everything. The hero hears the name Scream Spike and quietly repeats it, a look of concern crossing his face as he processes the information. The scene shifts to a flashback where 2 other bandits from the group walk through a dark cave, one supporting his injured companion. The injured man, his face bruised and bleeding, weakly calls out to his boss as he stumbles forward. He then pleads with a shadowy figure, their leader, to get revenge on the person who attacked him. The imposing figure, their boss, remains silent for a moment, listening to his subordinate's request without a word. The bandit then excitedly proclaims that he has found the secret tunnel the fox people use and offers to lead the way. Their leader, a formidable man seated on a stone throne, chuckles and commends his underling for a job well done. With a sinister smirk, the boss announces that their group will head to the fox tunnel right away. The subordinate who discovered the passage grins with satisfaction, clearly proud of his contribution to their plan. Back in the present, the captured man continues his taunts, stating he is not the only one who made it there as part of his leader's plan. In another flashback, one bandit chases after his injured brother through the woods, begging him to stop and get treatment. But the injured man stubbornly refuses, turning around to declare that it is not yet time to return to their hideout. The scene shows the fox girl standing over a strange, defeated creature, revealing a glimpse of her previous battle. The captured bandit continues his taunts, declaring that everyone in the village is as good as dead. His companion looks shocked by the threat, unable to process what the man is saying. She turns to the hero, Jahoon, calling his name with a worried expression on her face. He confirms their fears, stating that the bandit group has discovered the village and will likely attack soon. The girl's eyes widen in terror as she realizes the grave danger they are all in. Meanwhile, Jahoon murmurs the name Scream Spike, noting that it sounds familiar, and he is starting to remember it. He recalls the game Night Defense, where knights gained experience and grew stronger by blocking monsters that attacked the kingdom. However, he remembers that this growth alone was not enough to defend against the endless waves of enemies. To address this, the game had another system called Adventure, which offered a different way to progress. The Adventure system allowed players to select a party of knights and send them to challenge various stages for rewards. Upon clearing these stages, players received items and gold that could further strengthen their forces. He recalls the game's world map, starting from the first stage, which was named Wild Goblin Remnants. The map extended all the way to the final level, 10 to 10, the Demon Lord's sacred ground, totaling 100 stages. Back in his own world, Ji-hoon thinks about the game, admitting he does not remember the names of every stage. But he does vaguely remember the name of stage 1 to 10, the final stage of the game's first chapter. He finally remembers that the final stage of Chapter 1 was the Scream Spike Band hideout, a village hidden behind a stone mountain. Ji-hoon recalls that every adventure stage in the game had a backstory, and this one described a hideout for cruel bandits led by Scream Spike. He realizes with concern that in the entire game, there was no stage with the name Warren, meaning this place was never mentioned. According to the game's original storyline, this village is fated to be discovered and completely destroyed by the bandits. The captured bandit smirks at the terrified villagers, offering them a chance to be spared. He begs someone to free him, promising he will ask his boss to spare the life of whoever helps him. Ji-hoon knows that even if the beast folk do not understand his words, the terror in his voice is spreading through the crowd. The villagers look around nervously, feeling that something is terribly wrong as fear begins to take hold. The fox girl blames herself, thinking that her mistake will cause the destruction of her village and everyone in it. The Minotaur glares at the captive, enraged by his words. He asks if the bandit expects them to simply untie him. Ji-hoon looks down, his face shadowed with determination, resolving that he cannot allow that to happen. The bandit points at the approaching hero, shouting at the villagers and asking if they all want to die. Ji-hoon calmly tells the bandit he is lucky. He declares, Warren will be the stronghold of a new monster faction he will create. The young man clenches his fist, his expression serious, as he prepares to make his point clear. He swiftly strikes the bandit, declaring that this village is going to be his new base. The Minotaur looks on, sweating slightly as he watches the human's sudden and decisive action. The nearby bunny-eared villagers gasp in unison, their faces filled with disbelief at what just happened. His companion covers her mouth in astonishment, whispering his name in surprise. Ji-hoon stands over the unconscious bandit, stating that he has no need for any more pointless words. He then turns to the crowd with a determined expression, declaring it is time to fight. The fox girl's expression shifts from shock to resolve as she agrees they will protect Warren together. But the large Minotaur disagrees, stating that protecting the village is impossible for them. He asks the young man to look around, explaining they built their village in hiding for a reason. He points out that most of their people are women and children who have never properly fought before, let alone against armed humans. An elder village chief approaches the fox girl, acknowledging Ji-hoon's dream, but doubting their ability to win. With everyone's attention on her, she decides to make an official announcement to the gathered villagers. She declares that from this day forward, Ji-hoon will be the new village chief leading Warren. Meanwhile, the other bandits from Scream Spike's group are on the move, marching steadily towards their target. One of the bandits points ahead, guiding his boss, Scream Spike, directly toward the hidden location. The bandit leader spots the village behind the mountains, declaring that they will take the place for themselves. The bandit leader, Scream Spike, declares he will make the village his new hideout and orders his men to move forward. A horde of ruthless bandits charges through the forest, ready to bring a massacre to the unsuspecting village. The advancing group is an intimidating force, armed with crude weapons and wearing terrifying skull masks. Back in Warren, the Minotaur explains the grave situation to Ji-hoon, estimating the enemy's strength at about 200 men. He begins to tally their own forces, starting with the 3 bull beast folk, which includes himself. He continues the count, adding the 2 deer beast folk to their small defensive force. Next on the list are the 5 sheep beast folk, who look visibly nervous about the impending fight. The Minotaur then adds the single fox beast folk, Rhea, to their total number of fighters. Finally, he counts the largest group among them, which consists of 101 rabbit beast folk. This brings their total defensive force to only 112, a stark contrast to the enemy's numbers. Ji-hoon acknowledges they face an enemy twice their size and quietly questions their chances of winning, but he knows this is not a normal war. He thinks what truly matters is not numbers, but individual strength like rank and level. He remembers that Rhea was strong enough to defeat a bandit in one hit, even when she was ambushed. The hero estimates she could likely win a 2-on-1 fight, though a 3-on-1 battle might be too difficult. He recalls the Minotaur saying the beast folk had never fought properly, which makes him consider their untapped potential. He realizes they might have a hidden power called beastification, seeing them as unscratched lottery tickets with underestimated potential. Jahoon clenches his fist confidently, thinking that if everyone had combat power like Rhea's, they could overcome their numerical disadvantage. He approaches the Minotaur, who introduces himself as Tar Brimok, and asks him just how strong Rhea is compared to the rest of Warren. As Tar considers the question, the young hero smiles, thinking the game would not give him an impossible starting mission. Tar begins to explain his answer while in the background. Rhea can be seen playing with the small red creature she defeated earlier. The Minotaur states that Rhea is, without a doubt, Warren's greatest warrior, which leaves Jahoon looking slightly confused. He continues by explaining that even if all the other villagers, including the numerous rabbit folk, were to attack at once, their combined strength still would not be enough to be a match for Rhea, revealing a huge power gap between her and everyone else. Jahoon looks down, his face shadowed, as he begins to understand the grim reality of the village's fighting capability. His expression becomes deadpan as he realizes this means that in terms of combat, everyone else in the village is completely useless. Tar then estimates the bandits will likely arrive at the cave entrance around sunset, giving them a little more time to prepare. Rhea turns to Jahoon, asking how he knew their arrival time, to which he simply replies that he asked. She looks over at the tied-up bandit and realizes that he must have interrogated their prisoner to get the information. The hero then recalls the bandit mentioning they were looking for something their boss had lost, and he begins to ponder. He asks Rhea if she has any idea what the human boss's precious item might be, speculating about heirlooms or hidden resources. Jahoon listens intently, his expression serious as he tries to formulate a plan to defend the village. He knows that to overcome their numerical disadvantage, their individual stats must be high, just like in a game. Tar had already stated that Rhea is the strongest warrior in all of Warren, but Jahoon needs to know the exact power gap. The Minotaur also claimed that all 111 other beast folk could not beat Rhea, even if they attacked her together. He looks at the large crowd of rabbit folk, wondering if Rhea could truly handle that many opponents on her own. The hero struggles to grasp their true strength, wishing he could see their grades and stats to get a clearer idea. The word stats suddenly triggers a memory, and his eyes widen as a crucial realization dawns on him. He remembers his passive skill, Ruler's Eye, which gives him the ability to check the stats of monsters and items. Now he just needs to recall how to use it, thinking about how players normally access status windows in games. He remembers that simply saying the word status is often enough to bring up the desired information window. Putting his theory to the test, the young man dramatically stretches out his hand and shouts the command, but nothing happens, and Rhea just stares at him in confused silence as he holds the awkward pose. He sweats nervously, realizing that did not work. He then remembers another command that opens the inventory. This time, a sinister red window begins to materialize in front of him, confirming his memory was correct. A large system window labeled Abyssalot appears. As he expected, his inventory is completely empty. He notes the inventory is called Abyssalot, figuring it must be the monster faction's version of an abyss storage. The young man then realizes that in the rush of events after escaping the palace, he completely forgot about something important. A flashback shows a powerful, glowing red sword, and he remembers the weapon he was given. He recalls the scene of the collapsing throne room, realizing with a start that he left the sword behind in the rubble. Back in the present, he is frustrated with himself for not putting the valuable weapon into his inventory when he had the chance. He knows he cannot go back into the kingdom to retrieve it now, and accepts that there is nothing he can do about it. But that still leaves his current problem. He wonders why the stat window will not open, and if there is another method. The hero mentally reviews his 4 passive skills, the first being Ruler's Eye, which lets him check stats. The next skill is Communication Monster, which allows him to understand and speak with the beast folk. His third ability is Likeable Monster, a passive skill that makes other monsters feel a sense of favor towards him. Finally, he has Physical Monster, which grants him strength beyond that of a normal human. Most skills seem constantly active. Rhea interrupts his thoughts, shouting impatiently that he needs to hurry up as the enemies are getting closer. She then bows her head, asking for instructions and feeling that the current situation is her fault. His companion tells him she wants to protect Warren and all of the villagers, looking to him for a plan. Jahoon looks at her seriously, agreeing that time is urgent and they need to act now. He decides there is no need to obsess over opening a window. His eye glows as he realizes how to check their stats. His Ruler's Eye skill activates, automatically designating his companion Rhea as the target for a stat check. A large red data window materializes between them, causing Rhea to look on in confusion as Jahoon starts to understand. He reasons the inventory is a system function for his own items, so it opened just by thinking about it. However, Ruler's Eye is a skill used to check the stats of others. He realizes the method was simple all along. To use the skill, he just needs to designate a target and focus on checking their stats, which is why it is named Ruler's Eye. Looking at the data, he sees that Rhea is a B-rank warrior at level 5, her full name being Rhea Lindrian Pernati Celiard. Jahoon is surprised. B-rank is the same grade as a middle-class knight in the game, a much higher level than he thought. Her stats show she is a water attribute melee type focused on attack power. Her hidden skill is indeed beastification. Rhea tries to talk to him about his new burden as village chief, but she notices he seems distracted and asks if he is listening. While she continues talking, he notices a heart icon with the number 40 next to it on her stat sheet and wonders what it means. As she pledges to do her best to help him, his finger seems to move on its own, pressing down on the heart icon. The number suddenly drops from 40 to 35, and he wonders why the value went down. He then realizes his finger is not on a screen. He is actually poking a very angry Rhea right on the nose. She fumes, questioning his fitness as chief. The young man nervously insists that he did not do it on purpose. Still enraged, Rhea lashes out, screaming that she cannot accept his behavior. She swings her hand with a powerful swipe, a sharp sound echoing through the air as she vents her frustration. Ignoring his new title as chief, she fumes while the young man turns to the Minotaur and calmly gives an order. With fresh scratch marks on his face, Jahoon nervously assures everyone he is fine after the outburst. He then begins the long process of checking every villager's stats, calling them forward one by one. A small sheep beast folk nervously tells the new chief that he is the last one in line to be checked. The hero sighs in exhaustion, realizing that checking the stats of over 100 people is incredibly draining. He now knows Warren's total population is 114, and among them, the highest rank belongs to an unexpected member. Jahoon uses his ruler's eye on the small, sleeping red creature, identifying it as Rizzledrake. The creature is an S-rank monster, but its stats are focused entirely on magic attack and magic defense. Its special skill, Dragon Breath, is extremely powerful but consumes all of its MP in a single shot. He calculates that since only half its MP has recovered in a day, the skill cannot be used in the battle. The forces he can rely on are B-rank Rhea and C-rank Tar, who is a level 5 defense-focused warrior. Unfortunately, the rest of the villagers are mostly E-rank, a very low power level. This new information makes it clear why no one could beat Rhea, since E-rank is below even an apprentice knight. He recalls that the Scream Spike hideout was a C-rank difficulty stage in the game, giving him a baseline for the bandits' strength. After checking everyone's ranks, the young man now has a much clearer understanding of their grim situation. In terms of troop numbers, they are at a significant disadvantage, pitting their 114 villagers against 200 bandits. When it comes to the quality of their forces, the villagers are mostly inexperienced and far weaker than the enemy. The bandits are also better equipped with weapons and armor, another area where the villagers are lacking. He clenches his fist, realizing that at this rate, protecting Warren is nearly impossible. But his expression hardens with resolve. He knows this is not a game, but reality itself. In this world, many variables exist that cannot be simply quantified like in a game system. Looking towards the entrance, he decides he will create those variables himself to shift the odds. The new chief turns to his strongest warriors, Tar and Rhea, preparing to explain his strategy. Meanwhile, the large force of Scream Spike bandits continues its march through the forest path. The ruthless group advances without pause, their intentions clear as they move toward the hidden village. Hidden nearby, 2 rabbit-eared scouts spot the approaching horde and gasp as they realize the enemy has arrived. They agree they must hurry back to the village and inform their new chief about the imminent attack. One of the scouts sprints away, knowing there is little time before the bandits reach the entrance. Before she can escape, however, her eyes widen in terror as she finds her path blocked. Scream Spike grins, questioning how they already know his forces are coming. The bandit leader reaches out and grabs the terrified scout, who is now covered in blood. She grits her teeth in pain and determination as the other scout shouts at her to run away. The second scout flees, and another bandit orders his men to catch the escaping villagers. But Scream Spike raises a hand to stop them, much to his subordinate's surprise. The underling asks his boss why he is just letting them go. The bandit leader smirks, revealing that he is not just letting them go, he is infecting them. Back at the village, Jahoon directs his teams, sending them to their designated positions to prepare for the attack. The surviving scout sprints back toward the cave entrance, rushing to deliver her urgent message. The new village chief looks back toward the cave entrance, his expression serious as he awaits the news. A blur of motion announces the scout's arrival, and everyone turns as she says the enemy is here. Tar looks on with a grim expression as the scout confirms the humans have arrived. Rhea asks about the rain, then notices the blood covering the scout and demands to know what happened. The injured scout stumbles forward, panting as she warns them about the approaching humans. The scout finally makes it inside, shouting that the humans are right behind her at the entrance. Jahoon's hand trembles slightly, a sign of the tension building as the moment of truth arrives. He clenches his fist, remembering he was the only player to block 100 waves. This is the monster faction's very first defense. His gaze hardens with absolute determination, ready to face the enemy and protect his new home. Having laid out his strategy, the new chief waits with his villagers, all of them staring towards the cave entrance in tense silence. Outside, the large force of Scream Spike bandits approaches the hidden village, their figures silhouetted against the wide cave opening. The bandit leader asks his subordinate if this is the fox's den. The man confirms they have scouted the route and that dragging it out would be a waste of time. Standing before his men, Scream Spike orders them to finish the raid before sunset, and the large group lets out a unified battle cry. From the shadows of the cave, Rhea watches the horde gather, her voice low as she informs June that the enemy is finally here. The young man stands beside her, his expression grim as he wonders if their plan will succeed, knowing the beginning of the operation is crucial. The bandits march forward, their heavy boots kicking up dust as they move deeper into the path leading to the village. One of the men reports to his boss that at their current pace they will reach the village itself in about 30 minutes. The bandit leader notes how quiet the area is. One of his men laughs, assuming the beast folk are hiding and trembling in fear. Recalling his previous encounter, the boss vows to personally deal with the one who punched him as they continue their advance. A heavy boot stomps down on the rocky ground, but the bandit suddenly freezes in place. The man with the bandaged cheek looks down with a confused expression, telling his comrades he hears a strange sound coming from the ground. Suddenly, the ground beneath the entire horde begins to shake violently, cracks spreading rapidly across the stone floor. The bandit's eyes widen in terror, realizing the danger too late as he tries to warn the others. He screams for everyone to dodge, but chaos erupts as the ground gives way, sending the bandits tumbling into a hidden pitfall. The bandit with the bandaged cheek screams in terror as the ground crumbles beneath him, dust and debris flying everywhere. Just as he is about to fall, Scream Spike grabs him by the collar, pulling him to safety while the other bandits watch in shock. Down in the pit, the fallen men cry out in pain from broken arms and legs, surrounded by the shattered planks and rocks of the trap. Safely on solid ground, the bandit points at the chaos below, informing his boss that the villagers deliberately set traps for them. The bandit leader's eyes narrow with cold fury as he assesses the situation, his expression hardening. June's plan was simple but effective, a classic pitfall made by digging a deep hole and covering it with weak planks, dirt, and rocks. A diagram shows the design, where a central pillar supports the planks, ready to give way under a significant amount of weight. As soon as enough bandits stepped onto the covered area, the support pillar collapsed, sending them all falling into the pit. The man with the bandaged cheek tells his comrade that there were no traps like this when they scouted the area the day before. The remaining bandits look ahead nervously, realizing that the path forward could be filled with more hidden dangers. One of them steps forward to caution his boss, warning that moving recklessly would be too dangerous with more traps possibly ahead. But Scream Spike furiously calls them idiots, shocking his subordinates into silence with his sudden outburst. Ignoring their warnings, the leader reaches into the pit and lifts a massive boulder with a single hand, showing his incredible strength. He effortlessly tosses the huge rock aside, clearing a path and demonstrating that such simple traps are meaningless to him. As the boulder crashes down, he scoffs at the very idea of traps, wondering how the villagers could have possibly known where to place them. Scream Spike reasons that since the cave was artificially dug into a stony mountain, the original floor was solid rock. He explains that even with pits covered by wood, dirt, and rocks, the difference in the ground's appearance can be spotted if one looks closely. His subordinates look on as the bandit with the bandaged cheek realizes what his boss means. The leader points out that the areas with more gravel are where the traps are hidden, scoffing at the villagers' primitive tricks. He smirks, thinking that while carnivores might be fooled, these traps only prove the weakness of the herbivore demi-humans. The bandit chief orders some men to stay and rescue the fallen, while the rest advance cautiously. Now aware of how to spot the traps, watching from a hidden alcove, Ria grows worried, telling June that the bandits have figured out their traps and will soon break through. But the young chief smirks, confirming that everything is going just as planned, leaving his companion utterly confused. He explains that digging through solid rock would have taken the villagers far too long. Even with their enhanced strength, perfectly concealing the holes was impossible in such a short time. So he knew the rushed traps would only work once. The strategist reveals that there are only 2 deep pit traps. The rest of them are all fakes. The bandits now move slowly, carefully avoiding the gravel patches, buying time for the next phase of the chief's plan. June tells Ria that by making the bandits wary, their march speed has been cut by more than half, and it's time to move to their next position. As they leave, the scene shifts to the cliff face high above the cave entrance, where all seems quiet. Suddenly, large cracks spread across the rock wall. As the bandits cautiously advance, a sudden voice echoes through the cavern. Startling the men, the voice instructs them that at the fork ahead, they should take the right path to reach their destination. The bandit leader stops, his expression growing suspicious as he questions the existence of a fork in the road. Soon they arrive not at a fork, but at a dead end with 3 separate tunnels, leaving the bandits confused by the false directions. The men begin to argue, unable to agree on the correct path, with some recalling weeds on the left and others insisting it was the right. Screamspike declares that such flimsy traps and illusions are not enough to stop them from advancing. A slight smirk appears on his face as he realizes the purpose of the cave's layout was simply to buy time. He deduces the villagers must be preparing something, and they cannot afford to give them any more time. The leader decides to split his forces into 3 groups to advance quickly, starting with assigning the left tunnel. He orders his brother, a man named Crane, to take his group down the leftmost path. The middle tunnel is assigned to a large, muscular man named Dump and his team. The bandit chief announces he will take the right path himself, and the 3 groups proceed into the darkness. However, Crane's group is quickly submerged in water as their path leads them into an unexpected flood. They soon discover their path is blocked by a rock slide, forcing the frustrated bandits to turn back. Meanwhile, in the middle tunnel, one of Dump's men shouts that he sees light ahead, signaling they've found an exit. Confident they have found the exit, Dump hoists his massive hammer and orders his men to prepare for the coming battle. At the same time, a subordinate in Screamspike's group points ahead, excitedly informing his boss that they too have found the cave's exit. The bandit leader smirks, pleased to think his path was the correct one, and mocking the poor luck of the other groups. Facing his men, he orders them to show no mercy, commanding them to kill every villager they find without hesitation. With a unified roar, Dump's group charges out of the tunnel, ready to begin their assault on the village. Screamspike's men also rush forward, their weapons raised as they surge out of the darkness and into the light. But as they emerge, the bandit chief freezes, his smug expression replaced with one of shock and utter confusion. His group finds themselves standing at the edge of a forest, realizing they have been led completely astray from their target. It becomes clear that both tunnels were decoys, leading the 2 groups out of the mountain far from the hidden village. However, from their position, Dump's group spots the village in the distance. He shouts for his men to hold their position. He immediately orders one of his men to return to the fork and inform the boss and vice-boss that they have located the village. Before the scout can depart, another bandit points towards a nearby tree, telling his brother to look at what he has found. To their shock, they see their captured comrade, the man they called Cargo, tied securely to a tree and gagged. As his men look on, Dump realizes they have walked into yet another trap and curses the monster villagers. He rushes to his captive comrade's side, but the gagged man frantically tries to warn him about the boss and vice-boss. Looking at his captive comrade, Dump wonders why their forces have been reduced to so few men. Meanwhile, the scout he dispatched is rushing back through the dark cave, trying to deliver his urgent message. He suddenly stops in his tracks, looking up in shock as a weapon swings down at him from the shadows. A cloud of dust erupts as Ria lands a powerful blow, with the young chief watching from just behind her. The scout lies defeated in a crater. His mission failed. June knows they cannot reveal their full plan just yet. He and Ria stand together, their expressions firm, knowing this numerical advantage was hard won. Their plan involved using fake traps to buy time, while altering the terrain to confuse the invaders. These crude deceptions were designed to make the enemy underestimate them and ultimately split their forces. The captured bandit frantically tries to explain to Dump that splitting their forces against only 60 villagers was a grave error. Dump looks out with dawning horror, realizing they are not the attackers but are the ones who have been completely surrounded. Rabbit folk emerge from the surrounding forest, revealing the bandits are now outnumbered nearly 2 to 1. At that moment, June and Rhea step out from a hidden cave entrance, ready to join the fray. The new chief looks over the battlefield, his expression hardened as he prepares to give the final order. He yells for all units to charge, and the villagers surge forward to overwhelm the cornered bandits. With a confident smirk, the young man declares that his real strategy is only just beginning. Enraged and cornered, Dump roars for his men to kill them all, leading the charge with his hammer raised. The large bandit barrels towards a single small rabbit warrior, determined to crush the opposition head-on. He swings his massive weapon down with overwhelming force, aiming to obliterate the tiny villager in a single blow. But at that exact moment, the new chief shouts his command, ordering all units to undergo their beast transformation. Dump's hammer slams into the ground, but the rabbit folk vanishes in a puff of smoke, leaving the bandit striking empty air. The commander stares in shock at where the warrior stood, wondering how all the villagers suddenly disappeared. The chief had anticipated this, recalling that when beast folk transform, they naturally produce a large amount of smoke. During his planning, he realized that by utilizing this effect during battle, they could create a tactical smoke screen. The battlefield is now shrouded in thick smoke, leaving the bandits disoriented and unable to see their opponents. With the chaos unfolding as planned, June focuses his gaze, designating the warrior Tar as the next target to move. Tar lets out a roar, his eyes glowing red as he transforms and charges into the unsuspecting bandits hidden by the smoke. His powerful assault sends the enemies flying, their screams echoing through the thick cloud of dust and confusion. Transformed and agile, Rhea also tears through the enemy ranks while the bandits curse the beasts they cannot see. Another part of the chief's strategy is revealed as a bandit finds his feet sinking and getting stuck in the ground. He looks around in confusion, trapped in the softened earth, as more projectiles fly past him. Unable to see through the smoke, a bandit's face is pummeled by two powerful fists, sending him reeling in pain. Elsewhere, transformed deer folk charge through the battlefield as a bandit frantically curses the rabbits, telling them to stay back. Three other bandits furiously attack a fluffy sheep villager, but their weapons simply bounce off its thick, resilient wool. Exhausted and confused, the men wonder why their hits are not connecting, while the terrified sheep trembles but remains unharmed. Suddenly, bandits across the field cry out in pain, struck by small projectiles that burn on impact. The source is revealed to be the tiny red creature, Rezel Drake, who hovers above them as the bandits curse its name. From their vantage point, the chief and Rhea watch the battle, confident that they have seized the advantage and can win. But his confidence suddenly turns to rage as he glares at the battlefield, questioning who dares to mock him. The captured bandit, now free, rallies the remaining men, ordering them to cover him while cursing the rabbit folk. The bandits begin to counterattack, focusing on villagers who are popping up from holes in the ground like moles. Seeing one side of his forces struggling, the chief calmly instructs Rhea to go and provide them with support. She agrees immediately, and a gust of wind kicks up as she prepares to dash from his side into the battlefield. Even the chief looks surprised as he watches her leave, his eyes widening at her incredible speed. Rhea becomes a blur of motion, her long hair flowing behind her as she closes the distance to the enemy in an instant. The freed captive spots her approaching and takes aim with his crossbow, vowing to take the fox warrior down. An arrow whistles through the air, aimed directly at the back of the charging fox warrior. Its sharp tip is reflected in Rhea's calm, focused eye as she senses the projectile closing in. She twists her body with incredible agility, narrowly dodging the arrow as it flies past her. Planting her hand firmly on the ground, she uses the momentum to halt her forward rush and pivot. In a flash, she launches herself into a powerful spinning kick, her body a blur of motion. Her foot connects squarely with a bandit's jaw, the impact sending a shockwave through the air. The man she struck grins smugly through the pain, taunting her and asking if that is all she has. In response, Rhea ducks low, her twin tails swirling as she dodges under the bandit's guard. She then unleashes a devastating high kick, striking him directly under the chin with immense force. The bandit gasps as he is launched helplessly into the air, completely overwhelmed by her attack. A shadowy beast form follows her as she continues her assault, knocking another bandit to the ground. She lands a powerful axe kick, driving her heel down onto another bandit's head with brutal force. The captive leader watches in disbelief as his men are defeated, shouting at her to stop what she is doing. Rhea stands over the fallen bandits, her back turned to the man as he curses the beast folk in rage and frustration. But his anger quickly turns to wide-eyed terror as he realizes the sheer, overwhelming power of the warrior before him. With one final, powerful kick, Rhea sends the captured leader sprawling to the ground. The man lets out a final gasp of pain before falling unconscious, smoke rising from his bruised body. The fox warrior stands victorious over the defeated bandits, her point made clear. Her expression is fierce as she warns them not to underestimate the beast folk ever again. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Dump looks around at his overwhelmed forces, his expression grim. His hand clenches into a tight fist as he glares at the villagers, enraged by their unexpected strength. His eyes narrow as he decides to use one of his skills to turn the tide of the battle. A dark aura begins to emanate from his body as he channels his power, ready to unleash it on the villagers. The new chief watches this display with surprise, wondering what skill the bandit could possibly have. He recalls that in the game, Knight Defense, only knights of a certain rank could use skills. The ranking system is shown, with only knights ranked C or higher possessing the ability to use special skills. A stat window reveals that Dump is a C-rank bandit with the skill Strength Enhancement, which increases his size, attack, and defense by 50%. The empowered bandit scoffs at the terrified villagers, calling them pathetic fools for losing to tiny monsters. Suddenly, his taunts are cut short as a shadow falls over him. And he looks up with wide, shocked eyes. Before he can react, a massive hand grabs a log, effortlessly lifting him off the ground. The enhanced bandit stares up in disbelief as the transformed Tar towers over him, asking what this monstrous creature is. His eyes are wide with terror, a cold sweat breaking out on his brow as he confronts a power far beyond his own. The chief watches from a distance as a massive shockwave erupts from the battle, signaling Tar's victory. His expression is one of shock and awe, clearly not expecting such a definitive and powerful display. Meanwhile, back in the flooded cavern, the rest of Crane's men have been defeated and are submerged in the water. Crane sits alone on a rock, impatiently wondering how much longer he must wait for his allies to return. Back at the fork, Scream Spike's remaining men are gathered, wondering why none of the other groups have come back. Crane grows tired of waiting, deciding he doesn't need to worry about his boss, and will take matters into his own hands. He orders his remaining men to head towards Dump's location, pointing them down the correct tunnel. The battle is over, and the villagers have successfully captured all 60 of the bandits who attacked them. The chief looks over the field of captives, their heads sticking out of the ground, and feels a sense of relief about their victory. Tar reports their casualties, stating that 23 are severely wounded and 42 have minor injuries but can still fight. The young chief's expression darkens as he realizes that despite having nearly double the numbers, their losses were severe. His villagers tend to their wounded comrades, but he knows that regardless of the cost, the operation was a success. However, his gaze remains hard and determined as he reminds himself that the battle is not over yet. He knows the remaining enemies inside the cave still outnumber their effective fighting force. Looking out at the battlefield, the young chief declares that it is time to enhance their strength beyond just numerical superiority. He turns to Tar, who stands ready, and addresses him as Taurus, preparing to give his next set of orders. The chief instructs him to distribute all the confiscated weapons from the defeated bandits to their own warriors. Among the various maces, daggers, and crossbows lies Dump's powerful hammer. Our hero looks to the horizon and says that now is the time to strengthen his forces. With that, he turns and calls Tar, one of his strongest allies, for a conversation. The protagonist then shows a pile of weapons and orders them to be distributed to all the soldiers. At this point, the warriors begin to pick up their new equipment. This means all your allies are well equipped and ready for battle. Seeing everyone ready, the hero activates his special ability called Eye of the Ruler. Using his vision, he can see that everyone's attack power has practically doubled. This makes the white-haired boy very happy and surprised with the result. Meanwhile, a group of humans walk towards the village camp. Their leader looks confused as he thought the hideout was in that place. But he starts to find it strange since the whole place is very quiet. Suddenly he comes across a bizarre scene of several people buried. The man is completely paralyzed, without understanding anything that happened. Behind him, his companions scream in terror as they see that horrible scene. The leader then realizes that all the buried people are still alive. The man shouts to the hostages and promises that he will get them out of there, but he realizes that the floor is full of holes. But before he can get close, two rabbits jump towards him with clubs. At that moment, a very loud scream echoes throughout the canyon. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a band of warriors is rushing forward. The leader of this group complains that because they don't have a map, they are completely lost. At that point, one of his men points to a passage and says that that is the right path. The henchman also says that after the passage, they will reach a fork in the road, but the boss realizes that it is a trap and tells everyone to stay away. One of his men shouts that it is too late because the ground is collapsing. With the ground shaking, one of the warriors ends up slipping and falling. However, the trap doesn't work properly, and everyone is confused without understanding anything. One of the men asks his colleague what happened, because it was a trap. Suddenly, the leader of the pack grabs his spear with force to do something. With all his strength, the boss then attacks the ground to test its resistance. But to his surprise, the floor is made of stone, and he wonders what that is. Laughing, the chief understands that only the cave entrance had traps. This mockery makes the man very angry that he was being toyed with. With an evil smile, he promises to tear all his enemies to pieces. At that moment, one of his men comes running and is too tired to talk to him. The henchman shouts that they have finally found the passage in the middle tunnel. The leader of the gang has a serious expression on his face when he hears the news. Meanwhile, in the village, someone announces that all captures have been completed successfully. The hero congratulates his ally on a good job capturing the prisoners. The white-haired boy explains that at the fork they can knock down a wall. With this, they created a new path that led back to the entrance. This way, the plan guaranteed enough time for the group to prepare for the fight. Now the hero knows he just needs to hold on a little longer to win. But one of the buried prisoners begins to mock the protagonist. He warns that everything will be over when their older brother finally arrives. The prisoner then reveals that his leader is Scream Spike, a guy on another level. Suddenly, a girl kicks the prisoner in the face and tells him to shut up. She turns to the hero and says that she counted 65 people capable of fighting. The protagonist analyzes that the remaining bandits are about 60, including the boss. He knows his side is at a disadvantage because they have already fought twice and are tired. But as expected, they gained a lot of combat experience. This makes everyone much stronger and ready for whatever comes next. With a confident smile, the white-haired boy says they have become stronger. He only complains that the new sword is a little heavier than he thought. At that moment, heavy footsteps are heard approaching the place. The fox girl notices the presence and warns everyone that the enemy has arrived. The buried prisoner is happy and cries out for his older brother. The bandit leader looks at his men and calls them pathetic fools. He then looks at the hero and asks if it was all a scheme of his. The protagonist responds mockingly whether it wouldn't be better to call it a strategy. The bandit leader smiles and says the boy has become quite confident. The villain then warns that the 2 victories were sweet, but there will not be a third. The hero replies that they will see, and then makes a proposal to the enemy, but the bandit leader corrects him, saying that this is not a proposal, but a threat. With that, he points the sword at the villain's brother and orders everyone to drop their weapons. The white-haired boy warns him to drop everything, or his brother will meet a tragic end. The bandit leader remains silent, with a serious expression on his face. The prisoner screams for help while the hero thinks this is a villainous act. But the boy concludes that now is not the time to be demanding and wonders if they will accept. To everyone's surprise, the leader of the bandits then drops his spear on the ground. He then begins to cast a strange spell while shouting the name of the skill. This leaves the protagonist completely shocked, as he was not expecting that. A purple light covers all the bandits and reveals the name of the ability Scream Spike. The hero realizes that it is an area of effect buff skill that increases the stats of allies. Your teammates feel the increase in enemy power, even without seeing their stats. With this, the protagonist realizes that everyone's combat power has increased drastically. With a shout, the bandit leader orders all his men to attack with full force. The battle begins and the buffed enemies begin to dominate the battlefield. In the middle of the fight, one of the hero's allies faces an opponent much larger than him. The enemy attacks and ends up injuring one of the little rabbits in the middle of the confrontation. Seeing this, one of the bunnies becomes enraged and hits the warrior with his club. Even though he is injured, the man holds his arm while the 2 rabbits look at him. One of the bandits with glowing eyes mockingly asks if they have given up yet. The two little rabbits are completely terrified by the situation. The enemy then grabs one of the rabbits and gives an evil laugh, having fun with it. Suddenly Tar appears and with his giant hammer sends one of the bandits flying. Seeing the giant, the enemies throw ropes to try to trap the hero's ally. The ropes wrap around Tar's body and his weapon, leaving him almost immobilized. The opponents then begin to pull the ropes with all their strength to bring him down. The Minotaur tries to resist, but the combined strength of the enemies drags him to the ground. With the giant on the ground, the bandits prepare to deliver the final blow to him. The enemies surround Tar and shout for everyone to attack the giant at once. At that moment, burning sheep are thrown at the bandits. Additionally, small creatures are used as projectiles against archers. The hero then realizes that even with the weapons and experience, they are losing the fight. Worried about the situation, the white-haired boy begins to look for Rhea. Elsewhere, the fox girl dodges a blow and kicks an enemy's arm. She then lands on the ground, but ends up being surrounded by several bandits laughing at her. The girl looks tired and out of breath as her opponents watch her closely. With an expression of exhaustion, she bites her lip, preparing for the worst. Watching the scene from afar, the protagonist realizes that his ally has reached her limit. Suddenly, a hand moves quickly towards our hero's face. He fails to dodge in time and is thrown full force into a tree. One of the bunny girls is also hit and falls to the ground, badly injured by the attack. The boy gets up and realizes that at this rate they will lose the war for sure. With a determined look, he concludes that the only solution is to eliminate the enemy leader. Focused on his plan, the protagonist sees the enemy boss shouting orders. Meanwhile, one of the bandits prepares to finish off Tar, but the hero approaches. Seeing the scene, the white-haired boy shouts the name of his ally, who stares back at him. At that moment, he remembers a conversation he had with his giant ally before the fight. In the memory, the boy asks Tor to save his last transformation until he receives the signal. Back in the present, the giant understands what his master wants and prepares to act. One of the enemies shouts angrily for his men to finish off the giant on the ground. Then several henchmen raise their weapons at the same time for the final blow. With a shout, the hero finally gives the signal for his giant ally to awaken his power. The Minotaur awakens and an aura increases his body's defense and health by 50%. With his ally transformed, the hero screams, and the two advance together against the enemy. The white-haired boy knows they only have 3 minutes left for the next phase of the plan. Their objective is clear, and they need to capture the bandit boss in that time. But the enemy leader doesn't seem the least bit worried and calls out to them with a mocking smile. In response, the giant roars with all his strength, preparing for the final attack. With a furious look, the giant attacks, using the whip that was attached to his arm. With the blow, one of the henchmen is thrown away while screaming in pain, but the leader of the bandits manages to hold the rope with ease and orders the giant to let go. The Minotaur ignores the order and jumps with his fist ready to crush his opponent. But the villain dodges with agility, and the giant's punch hits the ground, raising dust. With a mocking smile, the enemy leader asks if the giant just got bigger without power. Taking advantage of the distraction, the protagonist emerges from the dust to attack the villain from behind. The attack grazes and leaves a small cut on the bandit leader's face. It is clear that the giant's attack was just a distraction, so the hero could get closer. But suddenly the protagonist is shocked, because he realizes that something went wrong in his plan. The bandit leader shows his strength and throws the Minotaur away with ease. Without giving time to get up, the villain lands a powerful kick on the fallen giant. The enemy then jumps very high and prepares for a devastating final blow to Tar. Tired and injured, the protagonist watches the scene without being able to do anything to help his ally. With a powerful impact, the villain hits the ground and creates a huge crater at the site of the fall. The bandit boss stares at the hero with a sick smile on his face, enjoying himself. With that, he jumps with all his strength to give the final blow to the boy lying on the ground. Meanwhile, the fox girl shows her strength and easily defeats another enemy, but the protagonist is unable to dodge and is hit with a brutal and powerful blow. Seeing the scene, the fox girl screams the hero's name in complete despair. Even injured and bleeding, the white-haired boy does not lose his determination. At this moment he remembers when he was analyzing his own power statuses. The boy knows that his combat power is much lower than that of his two allies, but the hero rests on the ground because he still has a card up his sleeve to use. With his face wounded, he knows that against a human opponent, he has an advantage. A screen appears showing your passive skill called Physical Monster. With his eyes shining, the hero screams and releases all his hidden power in the fight. This special ability has a very powerful effect against human opponents. Feeling the change, the leader of the bandits is shocked and has no reaction. When attacking humans, all your stats increase by 200%. With his increased power, the hero lands a devastating punch on the villain's face. The fox girl is completely shocked to see her master's sudden strength. The giant is also left speechless upon witnessing the protagonist's hidden power. From above we see the white-haired boy staring at the leader of the bandits lying on the ground. The hero thinks he hears a crack coming from the enemy's neck with the impact of the blow. But to his surprise, the bandit leader slowly gets up, as if nothing had happened. With a mocking smile, the villain says he warned that there would be no third victory. Even with his face bleeding, he repeats that he said no with a completely insane look. The white-haired boy becomes desperate and wonders how he can defeat that monster. The bandit leader then grabs the hero's fist with crushing force. The villain's strength is so great that he forces the boy to kneel on the ground with no chance to fight. The hero rests his hand on the ground to avoid falling, completely defeated by the pressure. With a determined look, he thinks that he cannot fall at that moment. But the enemy grabs the boy's head, preparing for the final blow. With all his strength, the villain then brutally smashes the hero's face against the ground. The hero tries to resist, but the villain holds him tightly to the ground without mercy. With an evil smile, the enemy boss lifts the boy's face for all to see. The villain wants all his allies to see their leader's defeat. His companions look on in despair and shout the name of the village chief. Even the giant tar is shocked and unable to do anything to help his master. At this, the Minotaur shouts to the fox girl, who runs to save the hero. But one of the bandits points a crossbow at her to stop her advance. An arrow hits the girl's leg, but she keeps running even though she's injured. With a determined look, she ignores the pain and moves forward to help her master. The hero sees his ally approaching and becomes worried about her situation. With his face on the ground, he screams the fox girl's name, trying to warn her of the danger. The bandit leader says the sun will set, but it's already too late for them. With that, the villain shouts for everyone to hear, because he has an important announcement to make. He then declares with a smile that the war is finally over and they have won. To finish, the bandit leader gives a final order to his men to burn everything, completely helpless. The hero can only watch in despair as the villain commands. Obeying the order, the henchmen throw several flaming torches at the village. With that, the flames begin to consume the village's crops and harvests. The fire also spread quickly to the nearby hay bales. With his eyes reflecting the flames, the protagonist becomes completely desperate. In a short time, one of the houses in the village is completely engulfed in flames. One of the bunny girls screams in despair as she sees the fire spreading everywhere. With the chaos installed, all the residents begin to run to escape the flames. The bandits revel in the destruction and continue to throw more torches into the fire. Seeing the scene, two residents look at the fire without any hope of winning. The villain then tells the hero that war is not as simple as he thought. He concludes by saying that in war, the losing side ends up losing everything it has. Meanwhile, other bandits are having fun tying up a child of the tar race. The giant is forced to watch his family and friends being captured one by one. Amidst the chaos, a rabbit girl tries to help her friend who was injured in battle. The villain says that the hero's life base and everything he has built will be destroyed. With his hand on the boy's neck, he continues to mock his impending defeat. He then lifts the protagonist by the neck and says that even his life will be taken. Even injured, the fox girl watches the scene completely helpless and desperate. The boy tries to break free, but the villain's grip is too strong for him to escape. The bandit leader asks if he hasn't given up yet, and says it's all over, but the protagonist refuses to give up and firmly says that he cannot lose. At that moment, the boy has a brief memory of a woman smiling at him. He remembers her wanting her son to befriend a girl. Your goal is to return to that time and destroy the human faction. He shouts that he will not give up until he achieves his ultimate goal. With all his strength, the white-haired boy shouts that he will not give up at all. This sudden determination leaves all his allies completely shocked. The giant and the fox girl look at their master with new hope in their eyes, but the villain just laughs and asks what he's going to do if he doesn't give up. The villain then tells the hero that his role in that war is finally over. With the dagger at the boy's neck, the enemy declares that now everything is truly over. Suddenly, a bright full moon reflects directly into the fox girl's eyes. The bandit boss continues to hold the protagonist in the air to deliver the final blow. But to everyone's surprise, the hero and his ally fall to the ground as if they had fainted. A bloody hand and slowly rises as if asking for some help. The enemy leader is completely paralyzed and very confused by that scene. At that moment, the fox girl's hand begins to transform and sharp claws appear. The white-haired boy looks at his companion because he notices that something has changed in her. With that, he remembers that he always found it strange how others woke up with mana. However, the fox girl was never able to awaken her power, even though she had plenty of mana. The hero remembers that even when in danger of death, she never used this transformation. He then finally understands that the awakening of her race had a restriction. The condition was the full moon, because under its light, all of its statuses double in power. With her new strength, the girl turns to her master and asks for the next attack order. With a slight smile, the protagonist gives his order and simply calls Ria's name. In the blink of an eye, the fox girl attacks, and the bandit boss screams in pain with his injured arm. The protagonist watches his ally moving at high speed across the battlefield. Furious with the injury, the bandit leader calls the girl a monster and tries to attack her, but with impressive calm, the fox girl dodges the attack very easily. Taking advantage of the gap, the girl advances, and with her claws lands a fatal blow on the enemy. Seeing his older brother defeated, the prisoner is completely shocked. With a single blow, the fox girl throws the bandit leader's body away. With a cold look, the girl turns to the prisoner and simply tells him to shut up. The other bandits are left speechless when they see that their boss has been defeated so easily. With the defeat of the leader, the buff effect ends, and the bandits feel their strength fading. Meanwhile, the flames continue to spread and destroy the entire village completely. The hero watches the fire, but he knows that with the night something else will happen. A system window warns that at night the monsters become stronger, gaining 20% status. With a confident smile, the protagonist reveals that this was the moment he was waiting for. With the night, all the hero's allies are surrounded by a red aura of power. With his increased power, the giant finally manages to break the chains that bound him. At that moment, one of the bunny girls stands up and shouts for everyone to fight back hard. Motivated by their leader, all the other warriors shout that they will sweep the humans away. Seeing the change of power, the bandits become desperate because they know they cannot win. With a serious look, the hero faces his allies and prepares to give the final order. With the order of the white-haired boy, all his allies advance against the enemies. Then, the rabbit warriors scream that the humans are running away and rush to capture them. Seeing the victory, the protagonist reflects that he was careless and overconfident with the plan. Even with the tiredness, one of the bunny girls raises her arms and shouts that they finally won. But the first battle in this world ended with a scene of complete destruction. The hero sadly observes that more than half of the village has been burned by the flames. Furthermore, many of their allies ended up dead or seriously injured in the confrontation. With his face full of tears, he blames himself and thinks he could have done something better. At that moment, the fox girl approaches and says that he doesn't have to carry everything alone. The fox girl comforts him and says that everyone's abilities are different. She remembers that even at a disadvantage, he continued to fight with all his strength. Even though he was defeated, the white Haired boy never thought about giving up the fight. The fox girl completes by saying that he did his best within his abilities. With that, she touches the protagonist's arm to show her support at that moment. With a smile, she asks him to continue taking care of everyone as the village chief. His ally's words leave the white-haired boy without any reaction. Suddenly, the system shows that the affinity between the two has increased to 51. Seeing the notification, the fox girl turns completely red and embarrassed by the situation. Embarrassed, she says she'll help with the cleaning and runs off, leaving the hero confused. In the destroyed camp, everyone begins to help each other rebuild the place. But the boy knows that it's not over yet and that it's just the beginning of everything. At this point, a system window informs you that the second main mission has been completed. The population of the monster faction is now 82 people in total. As a reward, he can receive a random skill, and he needs to decide whether to accept it now. With a determined look, the hero promises that he will not make the same mistakes again. He then decides to accept the reward and learns the weapon refinement skill. A few days pass, and we see that the village is being completely rebuilt by everyone. As he works, the fox girl calls out to him from one of the village's rooftops. The boy then throws a snack in her direction to get her attention back. With a smile, the girl catches the food in the air and tells her master to eat it first. Happy with the food, the hero takes the food, but seems to have something strange in his head. But his expression changes completely when he realizes they are carrots again. The girl explains that the carrot field burned, but the food supply was safe. Confused, the boy asks if they are not carnivores, since they are of the fox race. With a depressed look, he concludes that this is forced vegetarianism for everyone. Then he changes the subject and asks the girl if her leg is better yet. She replies that she can now walk, and that she will also help with the reconstruction of the place. The hero realizes that their vitality and recovery power are excellent. Thanks to this, the village is rebuilt quickly, and 2 weeks have passed since the battle. During this time, they held funerals for all the victims of the battle, excluding those who died or fled. The 55 captured bandits were put on trial. All the villagers wanted immediate revenge for their comrades who were sacrificed. But ending the lives of unarmed people was never an easy task. After much discussion and debate, they finally came to a decision. To everyone's surprise, the final decision was to release all prisoners. But of course, they didn't just let all the enemies go away. On the boat, they left a note that identified the Scream Spike gang. The boy explains that the sea is home to several dangerous monsters. Hopefully, they would reach the kingdom and receive the punishment they deserve. The white-haired boy then reveals that he has discovered something very important. He discovered that the bandits were looking for an item that their boss really wanted. Luckily, her ally's house was not destroyed during the village fire. Intrigued by the object, the hero decides to use his Eye of the Ruler ability. With his vision, he discovers that those were enhancement stones of various ranks. He then notices a glowing green stone on top of one of the tables. To your surprise, the system reveals that it is a B rank enhancement stone. The white-haired boy wonders what those stones are and why they are in his ally's house. Suddenly, a huge bag falls from the ceiling right in front of the two. Upon opening the bag, he is shocked to see that it is full of enhancement stones. Completely speechless, he wonders what kind of lucky event this is. At that moment, he has a revelation and starts looking at the ceiling. To his amazement, he realizes that the ceiling is full of bags identical to the one that fell. The young man is completely stunned, wondering what kind of lucky event this is. His shock turns to panic as a sudden thought crosses his mind, making his eyes widen. He looks up toward the ceiling, unable to believe what he is seeing hanging there. The view reveals several more bags filled with countless sparkling enhancement stones. His eyes gleam with excitement as he realizes they've hit the jackpot. Wondering about its worth, he then learns that fox beastfolk are naturally drawn to shiny objects like these stones. They believe the items bring good luck, so they have a habit of hiding them in their homes. The bandits must have known about this tradition, which is why they attacked the village. This realization hits him hard as he understands the treasure caused all the destruction. Even though others reassured her, the fox girl, Rhea, blamed herself for the tragedy. In her guilt, She tried to throw all the stones into the sea, but he rushed to stop her. He grabs her arm, insisting she did nothing wrong. The ones who coveted the stones are to blame. His words move her deeply, and she looks at him with tears welling up in her eyes. At that moment, a system window shows her affinity for him has suddenly jumped to 60. He decides to keep the dangerous treasure safe, and Ria quietly agrees with him. The recent war and this event solidify his resolve, making him realize a crucial truth. Looking at their newfound resources, he knows that they all must become much stronger. As the sun sets, he calls out to Raya, asking where they stored the bandits' weapons. The two of them soon arrive at the warehouse, ready to put his new plan into action. He then prepares to test his recently acquired weapon refinement skill on the confiscated gear. He holds a dagger and an enhancement stone, ready to test his luck with his new skill. With focused determination, he activates the weapon refining skill on the blade. Suddenly, a bright red light flashes from the warehouse, visible across the village. The process ends in a flash, and the shiny blue stone in his hand shatters into pieces. Ria is shocked that he broke her stone, but he just smirks, revealing that it worked. A system window confirms a successful enhancement, noting a 70% success rate for C rank items. He then inspects a B rank dagger, the Scream Spike, which has a lower success rate of 55%. Holding the powerful dagger in a green stone, he decides to start enhancing it seriously. Outside, a rabbit girl carrying carrots notices the strange flashes of light from the warehouse. The entire village is lit up by continuous flashes as he works tirelessly through the night. The bright red light continues to pour out from the warehouse as he refines weapon after weapon. The next morning, two curious villagers approach, wondering what the village chief is doing inside. Ria also wakes up with a big yawn, questioning why he is still working in the warehouse. She finds him sitting on the floor surrounded by the dust of over 2,000 shattered stones. The fox girl remembers he was supposed to throw the stones into the sea, not use them all. She gets furious that he broke all her lucky treasures and grabs his head in frustration. While she shakes him, he suddenly tells her to stop, because the enhancement was a success. Green glowing dagger lies nearby, its power level now increased to +10. He explains it took 10 stones to max out the weapon, with every attempt being a success. He then shows her a huge pile of glowing weapons, all successfully enhanced due to their low grade. He also successfully enhanced Tar's hammer, boosting its attack power by a massive amount. Raya still doesn't see much of a change, while the hero lets out a big sneeze from the dust. Wiping his nose, he complains that the only real difference is the amount of dust in the air. At that moment, a minotaur named Tor appears, and the hero tells him to try his weapon. The large warrior grabs the handle of his hammer, feeling the new weight in his grip. His eyes focus as he senses the immense power now flowing through the enhanced weapon. With a mighty roar, he raises the hammer high above his head, ready to test its strength. Tor confirms it's much heavier than before, but he can still wield it without any problem. Although it's a C rank item, the hammer's attack power now surpasses the B rank dagger. Ria is confused by his mixed expression, wondering why he seems both happy and gloomy. The young man thinks back to his S rank weapon, a powerful magic sword named Hellbringer. He sighs, admitting that since he can't use magic, the sword is currently useless to him anyway. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the human faction's kingdom, which appears peaceful. Two people on a balcony wonder why they were told to leave a large hole in the ground untouched. A blue-haired girl nearby senses a strange and ominous aura emanating from the pit. Suddenly, a deafening scream erupts from the depths of the mysterious hole. Deep below, a warrior in golden armor struggles to pull a massive sword from the ground. A dark purple energy swirls around the blade as he grips it with his tattooed hands. His eyes glow with power and concentration as he pours all his might into the effort. He finally pulls the sword free, but a strange pulse makes him wonder what just happened. One of the men is surprised, saying that even Sir Ares at full power could not pull out the sword easily, which makes the situation troublesome. The warrior named Ares stands in silence, looking at the ominous sword he just pulled from the ground with a serious expression. Back at his village, the hero is suddenly notified of the third main quest, which requires him to expand his monster forces. The quest specifies that he needs to increase his current population of 82 people to a total of 1,000. A new party system is also activated, allowing up to 4 members to team up for synergy effects and shared experience points. He finds this system similar to the adventure mode in games, and starts to think about the best party formation, filled with new purpose. He tells his companions that they should go rally the surrounding monsters to join their cause. However, the Minotaur Tar tells him he cannot go, believing it is better for him to stay and protect their home, Warren. The young man realizes Tar is right. Taking his strongest allies would leave the village completely vulnerable to an attack. Unlike a game, reality has consequences, and he understands that if Warren falls, the quest becomes meaningless. He knows that for the best synergy effects, he needs to fill all 4 party slots, but he must balance this with the village's safety. After deciding to leave Tar behind, he looks over the remaining villagers, trying to decide who else could join his expedition. He observes the various beast folk, but most of them appear to be simple villagers, not seasoned warriors. As he watches them work, he notes that most of their stats are quite similar, making the choice even more difficult. Having come to a decision, the young leader approaches Tor and whispers his plan to him. The large warrior then gathers all the villagers, announcing that there are 77 beast folk present, excluding the leadership. The hero looks on with a determined expression, knowing he can't just pick someone at random for this important task. He sits down at a table with Rhea, who is yawning, and prepares to start an audition he calls "Show me the ability 77. Tar then announces to the assembled crowd that they must demonstrate their abilities to prove their worth. The most capable person among the 77 will earn the right to join the 4-person expedition team. Tar calls for the first group of contestants, numbers 1 through 4, to enter. The hero explains he is looking for someone with a strong will, suited for adventure, and possessing special abilities. The first contestant just fidgets nervously with his hands, unable to say anything. He then shyly admits that he wants to stay in Warren, so the village chief quickly dismisses him. The next group of villagers says they need to stay behind to plant carrots together as a community. Growing frustrated with the lack of serious candidates, the hero calls Tar over for a private word. He whispers a new instruction to the Minotaur, and his second-in-command nods in understanding. Tar then addresses the crowd, announcing that only those who actually wish to participate should remain. Hearing this, most of the villagers turn and walk away, leaving a much smaller group of candidates. The Minotaur reports they have narrowed down the applicants, and the hero is pleased with the result. With the crowd thinned, Tar calls for the first applicant, and a single rabbit girl steps forward. The auditions are being held inside one of the partially constructed buildings in the village. The young rabbit girl begins to speak, her voice trembling as she tries to introduce herself. Suddenly, her timid demeanor vanishes, catching both the hero and Rhea completely off guard. She boldly introduces herself as Rain and claims she can handle any task, from cooking to scouting. While the leader considers her offer, Rhea eagerly raises her hand, showing her support for the applicant. Rain passionately declares that she will dedicate her very life to the expedition if she is chosen. The hero seems unimpressed and simply dismisses her for now, calling for the next person. He then waves a hand and tells her she failed. As Rain cries, he asks Tar to bring in the next participant. However, he clarifies that the auditions are over. She was the only applicant, leaving Rain stunned. He is left completely stunned, realizing there was only one applicant for the important expedition, and so the Lizard Expedition team is formed with the goal of finding and recruiting the legendary lizard tribe. But the rabbit girl suddenly freezes, the word lizard catching her off guard and filling her with dread. She asks nervously if he means the terrifying lizard tribe, admitting she was too nervous to hear the details. A flashback reveals that just before the auditions, he had asked his advisors where to find monsters to recruit. Tar explained that the previous village chief had been sleeping soundly since just before the battle. The hero was shocked to learn the old chief had been asleep for an entire month, making him unavailable for advice. He sighed, realizing he couldn't ask the former leader about any nearby tribes worth rallying. The Minotaur then revealed that frequent human invasions had annihilated all the nearby monster villages. Rhea suggested there might be small refugee villages, but the hero knew that wouldn't be enough. She agreed, stating that to defeat the human faction, they needed to find and recruit truly strong monsters. At that moment, Tar mentioned there is one strong tribe that has not yet submitted to the humans. He warned, however, that they are fiercely independent and refuse to form alliances with other tribes. The powerful race is the lizard tribe, located deep in the swampland just north of their village, Warren. The swamp is a dark and forbidding place, and Tar confirms they are probably the strongest race in the area. They are so feared that even other monsters go out of their way to avoid their territory when traveling. The hero listens to the explanation, already understanding the situation without needing more details. He recalls from the game that lizardmen were powerful monsters that appeared around Wave 30. He realizes that their strength is overwhelming not just for monsters, but for humans at this early stage too. With only 2 weeks passed since the first wave, recruiting monsters from Wave 30 would be a game changer. Back in the present, the hero calls out to Tor, asking him for the exact location of the lizard tribe. The Minotaur provides a hand-drawn map, explaining they need to cross 3 mountains and a river to reach a valley. Despite the map making it look close, the hero is exhausted from walking and can't even see the first mountain. While he struggles, Rhea cheerfully finds a D rank enhancement stone in the grass, showing off her impressive stamina. Meanwhile, Rain carries a heavy pack, determined to be useful on this adventure with her village chief and his strongest warrior. She feels a surge of determination, wanting to prove her worth to the team in any way she can. The young leader whines about how much farther they have to go, but Rain sees this as her chance to shine. She pulls out a book filled with scouting records, confident she can pinpoint their exact location. But just as she's about to speak, a loud roar echoes from a nearby mountain, and she realizes she was one step too late. One of her companions tells her to hurry up, saying the journey will be quick once they cross the first mountain. Rain clenches her fists, reminding herself that she must prove her worth, but she needs to be patient. After a long journey, the team finally arrives at a narrow mountain pass, only to find their way forward is blocked. Seeing the rock slide, Rain's eyes light up. Path clearing is a specialty of the rabbit beast folk, and this is her moment. With a confident smirk, she declares that she will show them what she can do and prepares to awaken her powers. With a powerful leap, she transforms into a giant pink bunny and smashes through the rocks, blocking their path. The hero is surprised by how easily the rocks broke, but she explains their levels increased after fighting the boss. Rhea approaches and asks why she awakened, to which the pink bunny nervously replies that it was a mistake. The hero simply tells her to come along, and the group continues on their way through the newly cleared path. As Rain follows, now back in her normal form, she feels dejected, thinking her help might not be needed after all. Suddenly, her long rabbit ears twitch, picking up a sound that the others have not yet noticed. Rain suddenly stops, her ears twitching as she alerts her companions that something is moving nearby. The hero hears nothing, but Rhea explains that Rain has exceptional hearing, which is why she handled scouting missions. He then recalls seeing her before, a young child who was always on guard, constantly observing her surroundings. A flashback shows a younger, bloodied Rain running desperately through a chaotic scene, her expression fierce. He realizes this is the same determined child from back then, now grown but still possessing that same sharp awareness. The source of the sound is revealed as hundreds of large, clawed feet belonging to rat-like creatures. With a serious look, Rain confirms that the approaching group is the rat tribe. The hero asks if she means the boom rats, as they watch the large-scale movement from the cliffside. She continues to watch them, wondering where such a large group of people could be going. A worried expression crosses her face as she pieces together their likely destination based on their path. She points out that the direction they are heading is where the humans live, far from their territory. Looking into the distance, she confirms their final destination is the human faction's kingdom. The hero realizes that if the rat tribe's army is heading toward the royal palace, something big must be happening. Rain adds that their movement is strange because their villages are scattered and they usually operate only within their own territory. Rhea agrees, exclaiming that it seems like they are all gathering in one place, which means something is definitely wrong. With a serious expression, the young man tells his companions they will follow the rats, because he needs to confirm something. He then calls on his little dragon companion, Rezildrake, asking for his help as they prepare to move out. But as the leader and the fox girl start running, Rain calls for them to wait, explaining her bag is too heavy to keep up. She feels like she has become a burden again, but the hero thoughtfully considers a possible solution. He then reaches his hand toward the oversized bag on the ground and activates his storage skill. In a flash, the bag disappears, leaving Rain completely amazed as she thinks it must be some kind of magic. A system window shows the bag now occupies a large slot in his inventory, and he decides to check the details later. He tells his group that for now, confirming the identity of this monster wave is their top priority. With the problem solved and Rain unburdened, the trio leaps from the cliff to follow the massive army below. The scene then shifts to the human kingdom, where a loud bell tolls, warning everyone that war is coming. Citizens panic in the streets as a man runs by shouting that the monsters are swarming again. In response to the alarm, armored knights quickly begin to march in formation through the city. The commander, a warrior named Ares, urges his troops to move quickly, knowing the sun will set soon. The townspeople watch them pass, shouting for Sir Ares to defeat all the monsters and protect them. In the crowd, a young girl asks her mother why the monsters are attacking them. The mother explains that monsters are evil and violent beings that defy common sense, so humans must get stronger to survive. Nearby, a female knight with blonde hair listens to the conversation with a stoic and determined gaze. Meanwhile, the small red dragon, Razildrake, flaps its wings furiously, struggling to stay airborne. Watching from the ground, Rhea points out that they seem to be going in the wrong direction as her leader, and the dragons slowly fall. The young man feels he has reached his limit, realizing he might be too heavy for his small companion to carry. He apologizes to the dragon and decides they should just descend slowly from that point on. But as the little creature roars, it suddenly loses all its strength, leaving the hero with a look of pure shock. He screams as they plummet from the sky, and his companions on the ground yell his name before rushing to follow. Their shadow grows larger on the ground below as he realizes with horror that they are falling again. A massive cloud of dust and debris explodes outward as they make a hard impact with the ground. Sitting in the middle of the crater, the leader clutches the dragon and asks if it is all right. He lets out a sigh of relief, seeing that his small companion seems to be unharmed after the crash. He stands up, thankful they are sturdy, but wonders where they landed, thinking they fell near the kingdom. Suddenly, his eyes widen in complete shock as he sees something truly horrifying just ahead of him. Rhea and Rain finally catch up, calling out to their village chief, Jihoon, and asking if he is okay. His companions see his stunned expression and ask what is wrong, but he remains silent for a moment. He stares forward grimly, unable to look away from the terrible scene before them. The path ahead is littered with the bodies of the rat tribe, and he confirms that they are all dead. The three of them stand in silence, looking over a valley of death and destruction, wondering what could have happened. Examining the bodies, the hero notes that most have wounds from being stabbed or cut by sharp objects. He looks on with a grim expression, realizing this is the second time he has witnessed such a scene. Standing before the massacre, he reflects that once again, he is forced to look at a pile of corpses. He remembers it was the same back then, standing before a destroyed portal surrounded by death and chaos. A memory of his younger self flashes by, and he thinks that since coming to this place, seeing death is strangely familiar. Back in the present, he finds it odd that the sight doesn't make him feel anything, as if he has always been used to it. Rain covers her mouth in shock, saying she heard running sounds just a moment ago from a different direction. Suddenly, a faint cough cuts through the silence, and the group spots a single survivor lying among the bodies. The hero immediately tells Rain to get her herbs, and she confirms as the team rushes over to help. She quickly applies a healing salve to the rat creature's wound, and he weakly thanks her for the help. Rain asks what happened, but the injured survivor hesitates, still shaken from the recent events. The entire team gathers around him, waiting patiently for an explanation as he looks at them with fear in his eyes. He flashes back to the face of a human warrior, a sinister man with a single glowing blue eye. The survivor stammers in terror, barely managing to say the words humans, before freezing up, overcome with rage and grief. The rat creature suddenly lets out a loud, agonizing scream. He lunges at Rhea, yelling that humans were the ones who attacked his people, but she easily stops him. The fox girl holds him back, telling him to look at them carefully and calm down. He looks at the hero, confused, noting he looks human but feels like a monster. Rhea assures him that Jihoon is different. The young leader then steps forward, explaining that they followed the rat tribe, and asks him to tell them what happened. With a serious expression, the hero waits for the survivor to explain the situation. The rat creature looks down, recalling the attackers were humans wearing armor, the kingdom's knights. Hearing this, the hero's eyes narrow as he begins to understand the gravity of the situation. A flashback shows the rat tribe facing off against a line of knights as the survivor explains they were attacked without warning. The survivor recalls the knight leader giving a command, his words lost in the sounds of battle and crying. The memory shows a chaotic scene as the knights mercilessly cut down the rat creatures, who were unable to fight back. Finishing his story, he explains that the humans massacred them without reason, leaving the hero and his companions stunned. The flashback continues, showing a shadowy figure of a rat messenger flying through the evening sky with urgency. The messenger lands hard, rushing to deliver his report to the leader of the rat tribe. He informs his leader that 8 villages have already been slaughtered by the humans, his eyes glowing with rage. The rat chief roars in fury, questioning what his people did to deserve this, declaring they can't stand it any longer. Meanwhile, on the walls of the human kingdom, a commander orders the archers to move into position. Ares stands ready with the female knight, taunting the approaching monsters and daring them to attack. The rat leader growls, vowing that tonight they will get their revenge for all their fallen comrades. A massive army of various monster tribes roars in agreement, ready to storm the human fortress. The horde of monsters advances, a wave of fury and desperation aimed directly at the kingdom's gates. Back in the present, the survivor says he could infer the humans' motive from the actions of one man with a lip ring. With a look of pure hatred, he reveals the real reason his people were massacred. He remembers the knight with the lip ring, walking through the battlefield, ignoring the chaos around him. The reason for all the death and destruction was a single, small purple stone he picked up from the ground. The hero's expression changes as he immediately realizes what the item is: an S-rank enhancement stone. As night begins to fall over the human kingdom, the sky darkens to a deep, ominous blue. The female knight watches the horizon, noting that the sun has finally set, signaling the start of the battle. The rat army's eyes begin to glow with a menacing purple energy as they are empowered by the darkness. A system window explains their transformation boosts all their stats by 30%, but they lose their ability to reason. From the castle walls, the human commander orders the archers to rain down arrows on the charging monster horde. A massive volley of arrows darkens the sky as it descends upon the frenzied army below. The arrows pierce through the rats, but fueled by rage and their nighttime buff, they continue their relentless charge. The human commander then orders his archers to focus their fire on the monster leading the charge. A warrior on the wall responds by raising a gleaming golden sword, preparing to unleash a powerful skill. He casts a massive flame wall, sending a wave of fire to block the path of the advancing monsters. The rat leader glares as the fire reflects in its glowing purple eyes, undeterred by the attack. Back in the present, the survivor finishes his story, explaining he used his last bit of strength to stop the humans. A flashback shows him weakly standing before the knights, telling them to stop their slaughter. He recalls gritting his teeth, trying to show some defiance despite his fear and injuries. But the human knights simply walked away, leaving him the others as if they had no interest. The survivor concludes that since the humans got what they wanted, the dying rats were not even worth their time. The hero listens in silence, thinking there is nothing to resent, because this is just how the world works. He remembers being bullied in school, with his classmates trying to use his father's influence for their own gain. They would pressure him, questioning why they were ever nice to him if he could not help them. He recalls how everyone around him was always weighing their gains and losses, while pretending not to know the truth. The memory of that lonely and shocking realization still haunts him. He concludes that humans are creatures who will always prioritize their own interests above everything else. The human commander shouts for his archers to kill them all as arrows continue to rain down on the battlefield. A single, determined rat warrior continues to push forward through the fiery, arrow-filled landscape. The humans on the wall spot the rat leader, the boss of the tribe, and order everyone to aim for him. The rat king charges forward, using smaller rats as a shield against the endless volley of arrows. The female knight watches the scene unfold, her expression grim but determined. Arrows continue to pierce the Rat King's body, but he ignores the pain and keeps moving toward the gate. He is determined to make the humans feel his tribe's pain, and will, even if it costs him his life. A bright blue energy begins to crackle and gather around the Rat King's body as he prepares his final attack. He vows to engrave his tribe's suffering into the humans as he unleashes the stored energy toward the castle wall. The human commander, Ares, looks on in disbelief, realizing what the monster is about to do. Soldiers on the wall panic, shouting that the Rat King is self-destructing and that everyone needs to get away from the gate. The blue energy intensifies, ready to explode and destroy everything in its path. With his last breath, the Rat King whispers that his sacrifice is for peace, a final act of desperation for his people. At that moment, the female knight draws her sword, preparing to unleash her own powerful skill. A beam of pure light shoots from her blade, intercepting the Rat King's self-destruct attack. She activates her light sword dance, a flash strike designed to counter the incoming explosion. The Rat King's eye twitches, his final moments filled with the frustrating realization that his sacrifice will be in vain. A massive explosion erupts at the castle gate, sending a shockwave across the entire battlefield. Far away, the hero's group hears the sound of the explosion, and Rhea confirms she heard it too. The young leader explains that the Rat King is a boom rat, also known as a suicide rat, and that it just used its ultimate ability. The survivor watches in grim silence, knowing the battle is lost and his people are gone. The hero reflects that in the game, the sixth-wave boom rats were an easy challenge for a single S-rank knight. Even if the self-destruct had succeeded, it would have only damaged the castle walls, a futile sacrifice. He wonders if the rats knew they would die, yet still chose to fight to show the humans their pain and resolve. He clenches his teeth, realizing that many of the villagers who died were just women and children who had never fought. The young leader remembers Tar explaining why there were no strong male beast folk left in their village. The men had all gone to the kingdom, swearing revenge, but they never returned, leaving their families behind. He admits that until now, he had not realized that the monster attacks were a direct result of human greed. He recalls a memory of the king telling him not to worry, that he just needed to do as he was told. The hero clenches his fist, thinking that if he had accepted that offer, he would have become a part of the problem. He lets out a sigh, feeling more at ease with his decision. Even though his faction has changed, he reminds himself that he is still human, and just like everyone else, he will move for his own benefit. His faction's goal is to destroy the human faction, but his true motivation is to protect the ones he cares about. He turns to his companions, admitting he had not told them the real reason he wants to find the lizard tribe. He explains that he wants to rally them to grow their power, not just for survival, but for a greater purpose. He reveals that the monster waves are not random attacks, but a reaction to the humans' indiscriminate massacres. If they continue to do nothing, the massacres will only end when all the monsters in the land are dead. With a new sense of purpose, the hero declares his new goal. He will bring down the entire human kingdom before they can wipe out all the monsters. His face is set with grim determination as he accepts his role in the coming war. He looks at his companions and tells them that to achieve his goal, he needs their strength. The scene shows the desolate landscape, a grim reminder of the recent tragedy and the stakes involved. He explains that he knows it is a difficult path, but bringing down the human faction is the only way for them to survive. Rhea responds, telling him that she could always feel that his hostility toward humans was no different from their own. She recalls the battle with the bandit boss, how even when he was being defeated, he refused to give up. The fox girl continues, saying that a small village is not enough to achieve their goals. She agrees that to bring down the human faction, they must rally strong monsters like the lizard tribe. Rain then speaks up, saying that everyone in Warren saw their families killed by humans. She remembers the chaos and bloodshed, watching her friends die right before her eyes. A flashback shows a rabbit beast folk comforting a wounded friend as their village burns in the background. Looking at the dead rat creature, Rain admits that they had no power to resist the humans' attacks. But she acknowledges that he led them to victory against the bandits and protected their home. Raya then steps forward, looking at him with a serious and determined expression. She declares that if bringing down the kingdom is the way to restore peace. She will gladly follow him. The hero is surprised and moved by her unwavering loyalty, softly saying her name. At that moment, Rain raises her hand, also wanting to pledge her support to their leader. She enthusiastically announces that she will help too, flexing her arm with a bright, determined smile. Rain explains that her parents died trying to save her and her brother from the humans. She adds with sadness that her brother also recently passed away, joining their parents. Clenching her fists, she admits she used to think it was hopeless because her race is considered weak and fragile. She recalls the moment he punched the bandit leader, a memory that filled her with a sense of justice. Rain admits that seeing him fight back made her happy, and at that moment, she decided to follow him. She then laughs nervously, saying she probably will not be much help, but she is determined to try. The hero simply thanks her for her support, and her eyes light up with joy and appreciation. He thinks to himself that even though they have different reasons, their purpose is the same, and that is all that matters. He turns to his companions, declaring they will break the cycle of human massacres and monster retaliation. Ria looks on with a steady and determined gaze, ready to follow him on this difficult path. With new resolve, the hero announces their ultimate goal is to break the chain of hatred and restore peace to the world. The young prince is caught off guard as a powerful blue aura blast slams directly into his hands. His sister's fist, crackling with raw energy, connects with immense force, sending a shockwave through the air. She shouts his name, warning him to pull himself together, or he will suffer the consequences. He collapses to the ground, completely exhausted from the relentless assault, as she urges him to get back up. Lying there, he admits to himself that while he was prepared, the training for the beast fist art is seriously brutal. It becomes clear that the something his sister had planned for him was this very intense and unforgiving training. He recalls that for the first 5 days, it felt like all he did was get beaten up relentlessly. But after a full week, his senses sharpened, and he could finally start to see her lightning, fast punches coming. Now, on the 11th day, the training continues with even greater intensity, leaving craters in the ground. Showing a massive improvement in his skill, he successfully intercepts one of her strikes mid-air. His sister smirks impressed, acknowledging that he is starting to keep up with her pace quite well. The young prince grins back confidently, stating that after all the beatings he has taken, it is about time. He reflects on his progress, realizing that his beast fist art and aura have both reached level 5. Pleased with his development, his sister declares that he is finally ready to begin learning the beast god fist art. He looks up in disbelief and excitement, while she admits that she has never seen anyone learn this fast before. The prince's eyes gleam with anticipation, realizing he's about to learn the lycanthrope's secret technique. She takes his hands, explaining that she will now teach him a completely new way to wield his aura. Holding his hands firmly, she tells him not to miss a single detail and to follow her movements carefully. He looks at her with complete focus and determination, confirming that he understands and is ready. A brilliant blue aura begins to emanate from their clasped hands as the next stage of his training begins. A massive pillar of blue aura erupts around them, shaking the ground as she channels her energy into him. He closes his eyes, completely immersed in the sensation, feeling his sister's powerful aura flowing through him. Her energy guides him, and he notes that it feels similar to the beast fist art, but also fundamentally different and much deeper. He learns that aura is the force of life. When pushed to its extreme, it becomes akin to the power of the soul and of conquest. It is a ferocious and domineering power, one meant to conquer others and force their obedience. The young man floats in a void of pure energy, wondering if this is the true nature of aura. His newfound understanding causes the energy to burst outward once more, kicking up leaves and dust around them. As his comprehension deepens, notifications confirm that his beast fist art and aura levels have both increased. His sister looks at him with a proud and amazed expression, calling his name in admiration for his rapid growth. He stands confidently in his new power as a notification confirms he has finally acquired the beast god fist art. Looking at his hand, he considers his 2 new powerful assets, the beast god fist art and his earthshaker gauntlet. He clenches his fist, feeling a surge of power as the aura responds instantly to his will, forming sharp points. The prince and his sister stand facing each other, as the powerful energy now swirls calmly around them. Another notification appears, showing he has reached level 14. He smiles, feeling stronger than ever before. He declares that this is where his journey truly begins, while Carrick watches silently from the trees nearby. The loyal orc observes his master's incredible growth with a stoic and satisfied expression on his face. The scene then shifts to the next morning, with the sun rising brightly over their military encampment. Inside a large tent, the prince and his sister are having a quiet meal together after their intense training. He remembers something and decides to ask his sister a question about Felicia to understand the situation better. He asks why the relationship between Felicia and their older brother Chris is so strained. He thinks to himself that Felicia is a key ally he needs on his side, but her strained relationship with Chris could be a problem. His sister clarifies that they are not on bad terms, but they definitely seem distant from one another. She continues, saying there was no direct incident between them, which makes the young prince wonder what the real reason is. She hesitantly suggests it has something to do with Chris and someone named Sylvan, a name that surprises her brother. She lightly scolds him for saying the name so carelessly, and he quickly apologizes, explaining he was just caught off guard. He then remembers who Sylvan is. Felicia's twin brother, Sylvan Doomblade, was a troublesome opponent in his past life. The prince puts the pieces together, realizing the core of the problem must be between his older brother and Sylvan. Just then, their conversation is interrupted by the sudden arrival of Chris, who startles both of them. His sister nervously calls out their older brother's name, while the prince asks why he returned so early. Chris tells them to pack their things, explaining the mission ended faster than expected, and they are leaving that afternoon. The young prince is confused by the sudden news, and asks his older brother where they are heading next. The blonde warrior just smirks, finding the question silly, and reminds him that they need to report their success. Outside, they say their goodbyes to General Vandal, who thanks the royal siblings for all their hard work. The orc general tells the ninth prince that he looks forward to the day they will meet again. The young man smiles back, confidently telling Vandal that he will be waiting for that day as well. With the farewells concluded, Chris asks if everyone is ready to leave, and his younger brother confirms. The older brother then announces with a determined grin that their destination is the Demon King's castle. The scene shifts to a massive, dark castle, its Gothic spires reaching into a blood-red sky. Inside a vast throne room, a lone, powerful figure is seated on a throne, shrouded in shadows. The figure is revealed to be the Demon King, silently waiting with an overwhelming presence. The journey back to the Demon King's castle is a relatively simple one, as the group travels swiftly through the dark forest. Their plan is to reach a special teleportation circle capable of long-distance spatial leaps to return directly to the castle. The trip to the nearest circle is estimated to take 3 days, a journey that involves camping in the wilderness without any stops at inns. As they settle down for another night under the open sky, the prince feels a little nervous about arriving at the palace the next day. He thinks about the current political climate, which is dominated by 3 main factions vying for power. The first is led by the second prince, Zephy Radnaros, who is known as the Demon King's second son and his worst enemy. The other 2 major players are the first prince, Michael Radnaros, and the fourth princess, Anastasia Nekrian. In the intense struggle for the throne, birth order means nothing, as only those with great achievements and superior ability can rise to the top. He knows that Baikal and Zephyr are full brothers who inherited immense strength from their mother's side, the Draconian clan. The prince considers that the more moderate Baikal would probably be a better heir, but he knows such a choice is ultimately meaningless. He is certain that after he arrives at the castle, the entire power structure is going to change forever. Because of what he knows is coming, the young man resolves to prepare for every possible eventuality. His primary goal is to raise his level enough so he can finally wield the full power of his Earthshaker gauntlet. He decides to utilize his new strength by activating his King's Knights skill, and a notification confirms a knight order has been created. He is surprised to find that the skill functions like a guild system, complete with buffs, training, and a summoning ability. Covering his mouth in shock, the young man realizes that this is a seriously overpowered skill. He excitedly wonders how strong it will become as it levels up. But his thoughts are interrupted when an orc finds him. A green-skinned orc named Karak yells at the prince, asking why he is still awake when he needs to sleep for their early departure. The guard urges him to hurry back to camp, but the prince just smiles, thinking that Karak has shown up at the perfect time. With a mischievous glint in his eyes, he asks the orc if he would like to participate in a little experiment. Karak, looking nervous and sweaty, stammers as he asks the prince what he wants from him. Under the bright moonlight, the young prince addresses the orc warrior by his full title. A glowing golden sword materializes from thin air, shimmering with a holy light. The prince taps Karak on the shoulder with the flat of the blade, formally appointing him as his knight. A brilliant white light envelops the orc, who is shocked by the sudden surge of power flowing through him. He tells the prince that the feeling is strange, but not in a bad way. The orc warrior declares that his loyalty towards his master has risen, and a notification confirms his new status as Knight Commander. The young prince is thrilled, realizing his new skill is working exactly as he had hoped. Karak, however, is bewildered by the sudden overflow of strength and asks what is happening to him. With his eyes sparkling, the prince grabs the orc and asks if he wants to become the strongest of his kind. He promises to raise Karak into a mighty orc emperor, one who could even stand toe-to-toe with the dragon race. The orc guard, concerned by his master's sudden strange behavior, asks if he is feeling unwell. The scene shifts to a tall, ancient stone tower standing alone amidst a lush green forest. The group finally arrives at the teleportation circle, a large glowing platform inscribed with magical runes. Chris turns to his siblings, asking if they are ready to depart for the Demon King's castle. The ninth prince looks up at his older brother with a calm and determined expression. The entire group steps onto the platform, and a bright blue light begins to emanate from the teleportation circle. As the magic activates, a powerful gust of wind swirls around them, their clothes whipping in the magical currents. A brilliant beam of light shoots up from the platform, enveloping them completely in its glow. In a flash of light, the prince and his companions are instantly teleported away. The prince panics for a moment, caught off guard by the disorienting feeling of teleportation. He feels like he is falling through a vortex of bright blue light, losing all sense of direction. The group lands roughly on a stone floor, and he stumbles forward, trying to regain his balance. His sister rushes to his side, asking if he is okay, and he quickly assures her that he is fine. Suddenly, someone calls out Felicia's name, and the prince looks over to see a group of women approaching her. The women greet Felicia warmly, telling her they have been waiting and complimenting her beauty. Felicia stands with her arms crossed, a slight smile on her face as she is surrounded by her admirers. The young prince observes the scene, thinking to himself that it feels like he is watching some kind of idol fan club. Meanwhile, other groups greet Chris and Caitlin, but the youngest prince is left completely ignored. He jokes about no one being there for him as he watches Felicia's attendants whispering amongst themselves. Standing awkwardly with Karak, he feels isolated from the other groups, who are busy catching up. The prince now understands his current, standing within the Demon King's castle, far removed from the centers of power. He smiles to himself, unbothered, as this was all within his expectations. He turns to his loyal knight, asking if he is ready for what comes next. With a determined grin, the prince declares that from this point on, they will start changing things one step at a time. He and Karak are then shown to a small, dusty room in a remote corner of the massive castle. The room is little more than a storage space, filled with old crates, barrels, and cobwebs. Karak suggests they can unpack their things there, and the prince wryly notes that at least they have a room. Karak then informs him that the official event's schedule starts tomorrow, so they have free time until then. The prince is lost in thought when his keen ears pick up a faint sound coming from behind a nearby door. A woman with purple hair introduces herself as Flora Sevensward from the Demon King's Castle Real Estate Management Bureau. The prince is surprised, asking why someone from such a high office would visit him in his rundown quarters. She explains that his public merit level has increased, making him eligible to choose a new, better residence. He then finds himself at the Office of Public Merits, where he is greeted by an official named Isabella. He confirms with her that he can receive a new residence, and the Lamia-like woman tells him he is in the right place. Isabella gestures, and a holographic display appears, showing all the details of his recent accomplishments. With his merit level raised to 5 and 15,000 points, he now has access to more facilities and a much larger monthly stipend. She informs him that he is the first to achieve so much on his very first mission, which he finds hard to believe. He eagerly asks her to show him the available residences, and she readily agrees to his request. Karak is in complete shock when he sees their new home, stammering the prince's name in disbelief. They stand before a massive, ornate mansion with a golden gate, a stark contrast to their previous small room. Inside, they are greeted by Flora, who says they arrived earlier than she expected. Now dressed as a head maid, she bows and states that it is an honor to serve him starting today. Karak whispers to the prince, confused, asking why the real estate agent is now their maid. The young man calmly explains that he hired her using his accumulated merit points. He tries to explain the system to his knight, but Karak just thinks his master is talking nonsense again. The next day, the prince and Karak are getting ready for the official event in their new mansion. The orc, dressed in a butler's uniform, nervously tells the prince he keeps feeling the need to use the restroom. The prince, annoyed, tells his knight to just go already, complaining that his nervousness is rubbing off on him. He then sees his sister and Felicia, both in stunning dresses, and compliments them on how amazing they look. Felicia smiles, satisfied, remarking that all her effort in picking the outfits paid off. The prince's sister blushes and compliments him in return, telling him he looks great in his formal suit. He thanks them both, a slight blush on his cheeks, and says that they both look amazing as well. His sister beams with happiness at the compliment, while Felicia simply accepts it as a matter of fact. Chris approaches his younger brother, reminding him that this is his very first audience ceremony. The older prince places a supportive hand on his shoulder, telling him that today, he is the star of the show. The young prince looks at his brother with newfound confidence, ready to face the challenges ahead. As he walks towards the throne room, he knows that some might dismiss his achievements as mere luck, but he is determined to prove them wrong, confident that soon, everyone will have their eyes on him. He plans to make everyone evaluate the worthless prince they once dismissed as he confidently walks forward. The grand throne room is filled with courtiers and nobles, all gathered to witness the ceremony. Chris kneels before the throne, announcing his presence as the 7th prince before the great ruler. The Demon King sits silently on his golden throne, his imposing figure casting a long shadow over the room. A close-up reveals the stern and powerful face of Demon King Mitra, a ruler with immense authority. An attendant announces that they will now report the achievements of the princes and princesses. The young prince looks at his father, the man known as Demon King Mitra, and a sudden realization hits him. He remembers a crucial detail he had forgotten about the man who is the father to all the demon children. The prince recalls that his father is the one person in the entire castle who must never be underestimated. A wave of immense pressure suddenly washes over him, causing his eyes to widen in shock and fear. The overwhelming aura of the Demon King forces the young prince to his knees, his body trembling under the immense power. A vision of a goddess appears in his mind, telling him to conquer. An orb of golden light forms in his chest, radiating a powerful aura. The Demon King's voice echoes in his thoughts, reminding him that he, too, is a king. The prince struggles against the immense pressure, determined to overcome even his father's powerful gaze. Gritting his teeth, he fights to subdue the suffocating pressure under his own will. He rises to his feet, enveloped in a brilliant golden light that pushes back against the darkness. With his eyes glowing, he fully embraces his own power of conquest. The Demon King looks down at his son with a hint of surprise and approval. Breaking the suffocating silence, the ruler calls out the 9th prince's name. The prince looks up, sweat dripping down his face as he meets his father's gaze. He remains on one knee, his body still trembling but his spirit unbroken. The Demon King tells his son that he looks forward to seeing his future achievements. The entire court is stunned into silence, completely shocked by what they just witnessed. They all wonder why the Demon King would single out the 9th prince, who has always been overlooked. It was a simple statement of expectation, but it was one no one had ever heard from the ruler before. That simple phrase, coming from the Demon King himself, made it an invaluable declaration of recognition. The prince looks up with renewed determination, vowing to live up to his father's expectations. He finishes his first audience, leaving a powerful, and lasting impression on everyone present. Back in his mansion, Karak frantically tries to wake the prince up from a deep sleep. The orc hands him a letter, explaining that it just arrived from the Office of Public Merits. Karak impatiently asks the prince to read the letter out loud, but the young man is still processing the news. He explains that his father, the Demon King himself, has given him a personal mission. Later, he discusses the mission with his siblings, revealing it is a monster extermination task to subjugate the Cassius herd. His sister recalls that she and Chris went to the Inger Plains for training once, and that subjugating the Cassius herd is almost an annual event. She says she would go with him, but they have their own schedules to follow, though she is confident her brother can manage on his own. The young prince listens quietly as his siblings discuss his mission. Chris warns his younger brother that from now on, people in the castle will start paying close attention to him. He explains that some will try to get closer to him, drawn by his newfound favor with the king. Others, however, will become wary of him, seeing him as a new rival in the endless power struggles of the court. The prince understands, knowing that even the powerful Prince Zephyr was never addressed by name during an audience. Chris offers his full support, telling his brother to ask for help anytime he needs it, which the younger prince gratefully accepts. The older brother also tells him to see Felicia before he leaves, as she has something to give him. Felicia explains that he will need good mounts to travel through Centaur territory and offers him 2 large lizard-like creatures. The prince thanks her for the mounts, appreciating her thoughtful gift. She then hands him a small, unexpected item, and he wonders what else she could be giving him. He is shocked to see a beautiful necklace with a glowing blue crystal, recognizing it as a dark elf's tear. The prince is amazed that she is giving him one of the dark elves' sacred treasures, a feat normally achieved only by killing her. Felicia explains that the dark elves are a proud race who never forget a kindness or an act of vengeance. She then pulls him into a warm hug, telling him to take care of himself and return safely. The prince is flustered by the unexpected gesture, as he had never imagined Felicia would act so affectionately towards him. He accidentally calls her Felicia's nickname, Sia, which causes her to push him away in embarrassment. She quickly dismisses it as nothing, flustered by the slip-up, and the prince assumes she just realized how awkward the hug was. He says his goodbyes and steps into the teleportation circle with Karak and their mounts. As the light of the portal fades, Felicia stands alone, watching them go. With a soft smile, she quietly accepts his farewell, her earlier embarrassment fading away. The scene shifts to the Inger Plains, where a beam of light descends from the sky. The prince, Karak, and their mounts materialize from the teleportation magic, arriving at their destination. Karak looks around, a bit disoriented, and asks if they have arrived, to which the prince confirms. They are immediately greeted by a woman who addresses the young man as the 9th prince. She introduces herself as Karma, a ranger who has been assigned to be their guide for the mission. The prince introduces himself in return, observing that she has the upper body of a human and the lower half of a beast. She bows respectfully, honored to be in his service, and he correctly identifies her as a member of the satyr race. With the introductions complete, Karma suggests they get moving right away. The group travels across the vast, arid plains, their mounts kicking up dust as they run. Karma explains that it will take at least 2 days to reach the center settlement, and she plans to travel with few breaks. The prince asks if there are any other soldiers with them, and she explains it's just the 2 of them for now due to the mission's urgency. She reassures him that with the centaurs on their side, they won't be outnumbered, so it will be more of a group fight. The prince considers this, realizing that the real problem will be their choice of weapons for a potential mounted battle. As they ride, he thinks to himself about their strategy and equipment needs. Suddenly, a strange sound catches his attention, and he tells Karma to hold on while he investigates. Out of nowhere, a massive claw, like a tack, tears through the ground, heading straight for the group. Karma quickly dodges out of the way, her senses on high alert. She looks on in disbelief, a bead of sweat running down her face as she realizes what is happening. From a nearby cliff, she spots the Cassius herd charging towards them, wondering how they were found so soon. A pack of monstrous, shadowy wolves with glowing eyes and sharp teeth rush towards their prey. A terrified centaur screams as one of the beasts lunges at him, its fangs bared. The centaur cries out in fear, completely defenseless against the sudden and ferocious attack. Before the wolf can land its attack, a lizard-like mount leaps in, carrying another centaur to safety. The wolf's attack misses its target, crashing into the ground with a powerful impact. The rescued centaur looks around in confusion, while the prince calmly sits on his mount, observing the scene. The prince smirks, noting that the welcoming party seems to have arrived earlier than expected. He clenches his hand, and the Earthshaker gauntlet materializes in a brilliant flash of golden light. Unfazed by the ambush, he declares that he was itching for a fight anyway. The rescued centaur asks who he is, and the prince confidently challenges the monstrous wolves to attack him. The alpha of the pack lets out a ferocious roar, its eyes glowing with a menacing red light. The massive wolf charges forward, its speed and power far greater than the others. The prince grins, identifying the charging beast as the boss of the pack. Karma and Karak rush to his side, scolding him for dashing in alone and warning him of the danger. He tells them he is fine, and to just watch quietly as he prepares to face the alpha wolf head-on. He leaps into the air, ready to test the beast god fist. With his gauntlet glowing, the prince meets the charging alpha wolf head-on. The massive beast lets out a deafening roar, its sharp fangs ready to tear him apart. The prince channels his energy into his fist, his eyes glowing with determination. He unleashes a devastating attack called the Fist of Explosion, a powerful blast of concussive force. Karak and Karma watch in stunned silence, completely shocked by the prince's incredible power. The attack lands directly on the alpha wolf, causing a massive explosion that sends blood flying everywhere. The prince stands over the fallen beast, his glowing gauntlet still crackling with residual energy. The other wolves in the pack stare in disbelief, their alpha defeated in a single, devastating blow. They whimper in fear and quickly retreat, their morale completely shattered. The prince looks at his gauntlet, wondering if it amplified his aura to produce such a destructive attack. He smiles, realizing that the power is almost on par with his sister, Kaitlin. The rescued centaur thanks the prince for saving him, amazed that he took down a Cassius with one strike. The centaur introduces himself as Swift Wind and offers to guide them to their settlement. As they travel, the prince's gauntlet absorbs a purple orb of energy from the defeated wolf. They finally arrive at the Angel Plains Centaur settlement, a large village of tents and yurts. Swift Wind explains that 4 centaur tribes dwell in the plains: Fierce Wind, Heavy Rain, and Rough Night. He tells them that the Raging Flame tribe is the most powerful, and their chieftain also serves as the high chieftain of all the tribes. A powerful-looking centaur with red hair and a beard greets them, welcoming them after their long journey. He introduces himself as Savage Eyes, the high chieftain of the centaurs. The prince recognizes the name, knowing that in his past life, Savage Eyes was a formidable enemy. Karak whispers to the prince that the chieftain's glare is deadly, but the young man confidently introduces himself. The centaur chieftain looks down at him, his gaze sharp and intense. The prince, unfazed, asks for the chieftain's assessment of the current situation. Inside a tent, Savage Eyes explains that the situation is not good, pointing to a map on the table. He reveals that the Cassius herd has moved south much earlier than usual this year. Scouts are currently observing the area, though some believe a small part of the herd may have simply gotten lost. He declares that in 3 days, warriors from all 4 tribes will gather to crush the beasts. The prince remembers that in the game, Savage Eyes was an unrecruitable NPC, but he hopes things will be different this time. He agrees to wait for the warriors to gather, and the chieftain then changes the subject. Savage Eyes asks if it is true that the prince smashed a Cassius's skull with a single punch. The prince offers to show him his power later, hoping he can make the chieftain an ally, just like he did with his siblings. The centaur leader accepts his offer, saying he will look forward to it. That night, the prince walks through the center village, noticing the curious stares of the locals. The villagers whisper amongst themselves, recognizing him as the one who defeated a Cassius with a single blow. Karak jokes that the prince is quite popular, and the young man proudly agrees. He boasts that it is all thanks to his natural charm and virtue, but immediately regrets his cheesy comment. Karak wisely suggests that his master should get some rest. The prince lies in bed, peacefully sleeping after a long and eventful day. Suddenly, his eyes snap open as he senses something strange. He sits up in shock, his Earth Shaker gauntlet glowing with a bright green light as it absorbs more energy. He is confused, wondering when the gauntlet attached itself to his arm. A mysterious, blindfolded woman with green hair appears before him, calling him by his full name. She floats in the air, her presence ethereal and powerful, and tells him she requires his assistance. The prince, still in his pajamas, looks up at the strange woman and asks who she is. She introduces herself as the fragment of the Watcher Ankle. She then reveals her true name, Green Wind, as her blindfold disappears, showing her gentle green eyes. The prince recognizes the name, shocked to be in the presence of such a legendary being. He recalls that Green Wind was one of the nature spirits worshipped by the centaurs and satyrs. According to the lore of his past life, it is thanks to her power that the Anger Plains maintain their vibrant greenery. Suddenly, the world around him shifts, and he finds himself floating in a lush, green landscape with the spirit. Green Wind tells him that this place is her home. It is the sacred ground where the fragment of her origin, the Observer Ankle, resides. The prince is stunned by this revelation, his mind racing to process the information. He realizes that if she is talking about the Observer Ankle, she must mean one of the 6 legendary Elder Dragons. Elder Dragons were god-like beings that players could never encounter in the game. He finds it hard to believe that he has obtained Enkidu's Earthshaker and now encountered a fragment of Ankle in such a short time. Green Wind interrupts his thoughts, warning him that monsters from the north are heading for her home. Their goal is to steal the Verger of the Plains, destroying her home and devouring her very soul. She tells him that he is the one who can protect this sacred place, but he is hesitant. She reminds him that he has already obtained the power of Enkidu, a power strong enough to face any threat. Greenwind reassures the prince, telling him that the fragment of Ankle will make him even stronger. He is suddenly transported back to his room, finding himself standing on the floor as the vision ends. In his hand, he holds a glowing green crystal, a token from the spirit that will surely grant him the centaur's aid. He rushes out of his tent, determined to convince the chieftain of the impending danger. He explains that Lord Greenwind is in danger and that the Cassius herd will soon attack a small temple to the northeast. The centaur leader is skeptical, hesitant to march his men out based on the prince's word alone. The chieftain's eyes widen in surprise as he sees the proof in the young man's hand. The prince holds up the glowing green crystal, identifying it as a sacred relic of Lord Greenwind. Convinced by the undeniable proof, Savage Eyes asks the prince what he must do. The centaur warriors quickly assemble, their hooves thundering on the grassy plains. An army of archers and spearmen stands ready, prepared to defend their sacred land. The prince looks at his map, finally locating the hidden temple. A beautiful, ancient temple, bathed in a soft green light, stands nestled in a clearing. One of the centaurs spots the temple and points it out to the chieftain. As they approach, they are horrified to see a massive horde of Cassius wolves already gathered before the temple. The prince wonders how the monsters could have possibly found Greenwind's hidden home. He realizes that there must be something else going on, a piece of the puzzle he is missing. The centaur chieftain notes that the number of enemies is far greater than he had anticipated and asks the prince for a plan. The young man recalls Greenwind's words that he must gain power from Inkle's fragment inside the temple. He tells the chieftain that he is going to the temple and orders them to keep the monsters at bay. The prince calls out to his companions, and they immediately respond, ready for his command. Savage Eyes raises his sword and rallies his warriors, ordering them not to let a single monster enter the temple. With a fierce expression, the centaur chieftain commands all units to prepare for battle. The centaur warriors let out a mighty war cry and charge forward to meet the enemy head-on. A line of archers takes aim, their bows drawn and ready to unleash a deadly volley. A shower of arrows rains down on the charging Cassius herd, piercing through their tough hides. The centaur infantry, with their swords and spears ready, clash with the front lines of the monster horde. A warrior leaps into the air, gracefully cutting down 2 wolves with a single, fluid motion. Karak reminds the prince of their objective, and the young man confirms they just need to get to the temple. His loyal companions vow to clear a path for him through the chaotic battlefield. Karak lets out a fierce battle cry, swinging his massive axe with incredible force. He carves a path through the wolves, his powerful strikes sending them flying. The prince watches his team, impressed by their skill and teamwork as they fight their way forward. They are almost at the temple, but the prince's path is suddenly blocked. A massive wooden club swings down towards him, catching him completely by surprise. The attack is incredibly fast and powerful, launched by a giant, muscular beast. The prince is sent flying from his mount, unable to dodge the devastating blow. A massive minotaur-like creature lets out a triumphant roar, its eyes burning with rage. The beast stands over the fallen prince, ready to deliver the final blow. The young man curses himself for letting his guard down, knowing he is in a very dangerous situation. Just as the minotaur is about to strike, Carrick intercepts the attack with his axe. The prince looks up to see his loyal knight standing over him, asking if he is all right. Carrack tells his master to get up, reminding him that it is still too early to be sleeping on the job. The massive orc heroically stands between the prince and the minotaur, ready to defend his master. He lets out a grunt of pain as he struggles to hold back the powerful beast. The prince smirks, teasing his knight for putting on a cool act, but already being at his limit. He raises his hand and casts a powerful buff, yelling under the king's flag. A brilliant golden light envelopes Carrick, and he lets out a powerful roar as he is filled with newfound strength. With his knight now empowered, the prince declares that the real attack is about to begin. Carrack, now glowing with golden energy, easily overpowers the minotaur, sending it staggering back. He lets out a mighty war cry, his voice echoing across the battlefield as he unleashes his full power. The minotaur roars in pain and shock as Carrack's relentless assault overwhelms it. With a final powerful swing of his axe, the orc brings the massive beast to its knees. He raises his axe high and brings it down, smashing the ground with immense force. Carrack tells the prince to leave the rest to him and go to the temple, and the young man entrusts the battle to his knight. The prince runs towards the ancient temple, his cape billowing behind him as he sprints across the grassy field. He enters the dimly lit temple, calling out for Greenwind, his voice echoing in the silent hall. A gentle voice tells him that the armament of Enkidu will guide him, and his gauntlet begins to glow with green energy. He looks at his glowing hand, realizing that the energy is pointing him deeper into the temple. A path of green light and leaves appears, leading him toward the heart of the sacred ground. He follows the path and finds a massive, ancient tree, glowing with an intense green aura. He stares in awe, leaves and particles of light swirling around him as he takes in the magnificent sight. A gnarled, wooden hand reaches out from the tree, offering him a glowing green object. The prince is speechless, his eyes wide with amazement as he recognizes the item. It is a dragon heart, the source of magic that every dragon possesses. He finally understands what Greenwind meant by a fragment of ankle. The spirit herself appears, explaining that the Anger Plains have been kept peaceful by the magic of the observer, ankle. She reveals that the temple is the center of that magic, and if it is destroyed, the peace will be broken. Greenwind pleads with him to awaken the ancient magic of ankle that remains in the temple to stop the monsters. Meanwhile, outside, Savage Eyes rallies his warriors, ordering them not to fall back and to protect the temple at all costs. Carrack fights with incredible ferocity, his empowered axe cleaving through the monsters with ease. Karma, surrounded by wolves, unleashes her own power, her hands glowing with a bright blue energy. Greenwind tells the prince that she is counting on him to protect the plains and her children. She entrusts him with the last of her magic, her form beginning to fade as she transfers her power. A brilliant flash of green light envelops the prince, and he is suddenly transported to a different place. He looks around in confusion, finding himself in a strange, otherworldly space. Before him stands a colossal, majestic creature with 3 eyes, massive wings, and intricate antlers. The prince stares in utter awe, realizing he is in the presence of the legendary observer, Enkel, a powerful, if the real voice tells him to take the power he seeks. A surge of green energy flows into the prince, his body glowing as he absorbs the ancient magic. Back on the battlefield, a massive pillar of green light erupts from the temple, bathing the area in its glow. Carrack and the others look on in confusion, wondering what is happening with the prince. Suddenly, massive roots and vines burst from the ground, entangling the charging monsters. The ground cracks and shifts as the ancient magic of the forest awakens. Giant, sentient trees, known as trents, rise from the earth, their eyes glowing with a menacing green light. the Cassius wolves find themselves surrounded by these powerful nature guardians. The trance attack with incredible force, their wooden limbs smashing the monsters with ease. The battlefield is quickly turned in their favor as the awakened forest fights alongside the centaurs. Inside the temple, Greenwind declares that Enkel's ancient magic has finally been awakened. She thanks the prince for his help, her voice filled with gratitude. The prince reaches out and touches the dragon heart, his hand glowing with the same green energy. As he absorbs the power, a halo of light forms above Greenwind's head. The spirit is shocked, wondering why Enkel's magic power is flowing into the prince instead of returning to the land. The young man is overcome by the immense power that invades his body as he absorbs the ancient magic.